the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
And it starts at the end of the week. What does it look like on these streets? A little bit of traffic building up on Mombasa Road. The southern bypass, however, is looking pretty good. Let's look at the Uhuru Highway, which caused people loads of agony yesterday. This morning hasn't started out with too much drama at all. Coming out of Westlands, we see some traffic here and there on Wayaki Way, and we're going to see some on the Thika Superhighway building up already. Apart from that, doesn't look too painful. Let's keep an eye on things as we start the end of the week this Friday. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter, just in case anything jumps out at you. Text us as well on 40127. Let's keep things moving this Friday.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation.
Good morning. It's Friday. And how are you? It seems as though I've been abandoned, but I have not. And even if I were, I think I'd be able to, make a meal of it, don't you? Good morning. It's the tail end of the week, and here we are, and I'm in the room with two fine, strapping gentlemen. In the name of Eric Latiff, how are you?
Me, I'm fine.
Oh, you really? Karibu sana.
Yeah. Sana.
Asante.
What is it you're doing with your hair? Rapunzel?
I was braiding it to allow the young man to climb up the castle.
Okay.
How are you, CT? Did you not read the tale of Rapunzel? Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Climb down the line.
What? How is it pronounced in your neck of the woods, Abek?
It's the way it's written.
Uh-huh.
But let's just go there.
Okay.
Which is what?
I remember that story.
You remember the story? It was nice. It's like Jack and the Beanstalk. Remember Jack and the Beanstalk?
Jack, I remember.
Yeah.
I even remember the beanstalk.
The magic beans that grew.
I
and then
remember very, very clearly, and the giant.
I used to wish I had magic beans when I was that age. Make things disappear, make people disappear, more importantly.
But the one with the story which I really like, my best story, Snow White and the 40 Thieves.
It was actually Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay.
So
Seven Dwarfs.
And who were with the 40
was it your
Thieves?
story? Am I?
Okay, your own, sorry.
He's talking about the story he remembers.
Please forgive me.
No,
I'm
there
sorry.
was one of those stories with the 40 Thieves.
No, it's Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. But I can understand that maybe where you were, in your world, you read Snow White and the 40 Thieves. Ni sawa sawa.
It was edited.
Ni sawa.
All right. Now you read the newly edited King James version.
Because now they decided this 40 is a bit many. Let's just give them 7.
Yeah.
And call them dwarfs.
And call them dwarfs.
Yeah.
So that, yes, but 7.
By the time it was getting to you, there were 7.
The one I like, which is like the story of many politicians, is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Hey, Goldilocks was a thief. She came saying, I'm hungry, I'm tired. Thief, go and take things that don't belong to you.
Wait.
Yeah?
Who's that now?
Goldilocks, is that story though? The mama bear, Toto bear, and
the other bear.
And Papa bear.
Yes. Chick is walking through the forest and happens upon a house and there's food, then you eat.
That is an adult story.
It is.
Thievery.
Fraud.
Daddy bear.
Mommy bear. Oh, okay, sour.
Gummy bear.
Eric, how is your fine? Thank you.
I am well, but it's so cold in here. Yes, it's very hot outside, but Ndu, surely you didn't have to do this.
Is my name air conditioner?
Yes.
I don't understand.
You're the one who came and pressed that thing.
I pressed nothing.
That's the problem. See? You walked right into that one.
I beg, I did the one that they sent me to do.
That's the problem. You did not come and press that thing so that
Because they said we should be
enough.
speaking our language,
It's just
Abby.
too cold. Hey, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. We're glad that you're joining us today, the Friday, the 18th of February, 2022. It's hashtag Healthy Fridays today. Dr. Mercy Korir will be joining us later for a conversation. At 7 o'clock, we'll have a conversation with Dr. Githinji Gitahi. He is of AMREF Africa. And we'll be talking about something that he started. He started a conversation and said, look, is it about time that we reviewed the mask mandate? That the government should now say it's no longer mandatory for you to wear a mask in public places. Why? Because with a 0.3 positivity rate of COVID-19, we're getting to a point where it seems we're moving from pandemic to endemic stage of COVID. Maybe if it rises again, then you can reintroduce those measures. But for now, we'll talk to him at 7. He'll tell us. But how are we doing in terms of COVID?
Well, let's look at the numbers in Kenya right now. 69 new cases, positivity rate of 1.1%. It's risen ever so slightly, and this is from the last sample size of 6,352. Slight rise in positivity rate, nothing out of whack as it were. Again, another day of unrecorded deaths. People with COVID are not suffering from extreme symptoms. It's what the state of things looks like. So the conversation now is shifting to masking up and things like that, should it really happen or not. It's interesting because on the other side of the pond, a group that represents the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK, has called for free COVID testing to remain, despite speculation that it could be scrapped. The NHS Confederation, which is called, also said that 75% of senior staff in England did not want self-isolation rules to end. They want to be protected. Government is saying, look here, this thing is going to be here with us. Let's just figure out how to live with it. We can remove some of this mandatory testing that we've said. But they're saying, no, we prefer that it remains. This could include scrapping PCR test centres and free lateral flow tests as part of living with COVID strategy. The government has spent billions of pounds on testing throughout the pandemic. Experts believe in future it could be used only in hospitals and care settings to deal with major outbreaks. In the survey of more than 300 NHS leaders, 4/5 said they disagree with the expected plan to end free testing. So what they're suggesting is, well, we're going to keep COVID testing only in hospitals if you need to go check if you have certain symptoms. And it'll be a paid service. So we're going to remove all this random testing in all your pharmacies and whatever that's for free. It's not necessary anymore. They expressed the need for regular testing to continue for health staff and key workers. Asked if the free COVID tests could be scrapped next week, Health Secretary Sajid Javid said, we are looking at how we learn to live with COVID, and that does not mean the protections we've enjoyed over the last months. And that does mean the protections we've enjoyed over the last months, that they should all be reviewed. So we're looking at the very latest data. Next week we'll have more to say about it. So it'd be interesting to see if they'll actually do that now when you have population saying, actually, you know what, please keep it around. Looking very quickly in Canada and seeing what's happening there, police warn Ottawa truckers of imminent action. So the police had removed people, but the truckers have said, no, we're not moving. They've warned that action, more than what they've done initially, is imminent as they prepare to clear a blockade of protesters in the city. The demonstrators who have been in downtown Ottawa since January opposing COVID restrictions have been asked to leave or risk arrest. It comes days after the federal government invoked the never-before-used Emergency Act. The act imposes bans on public assembly in some areas, among other measures. According to Ottawa's interim police chief, Steve Bell, if you want to leave on your own terms, now is the time to do so. Police have secured up areas in Ottawa city centre with almost 100 police checkpoints around the main protest site and a large business and residential section. So only those with a lawful purpose to enter, like people living or working in the area, will be allowed in, excluding anyone intending to join the demonstration. So the weekend looks like it could be quite spicy, depending on what the truckers decide.
See, just listen to your people. Why are you deciding that there are more people who are more important than others in your country? just because they drive trucks. So
That interpretation is
It's interesting.
Yes, isn't it? That is
well,
an
that's how it
interpretation
comes
nonetheless.
out.
Because they drive trucks, they can't have a logical mind.
You tell me if it was doctors who were protesting there, or if it was.
Well, it's a good point, but it isn't doctors who are protesting. It happens to be truck drivers who are protesting. So
Okay, Kanzadena of Canada. Let's take a break. It's 16 minutes after 6. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Are you online? Because we are on SpiceFM KE, Facebook, and YouTube. We'll be saying hello shortly after we take a look at the weather forecast.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked, and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi. After the rain comes the sunshine. Highs of 28 and lows of 15. Mostly cloudy conditions at 15 in Nakuru. Highs of 28 and lows of 14. It's mostly clear at 14 in Nyeri. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 13. While in Eldoret, it's clear at 13. Highs of 25 today and lows of 11. Mostly clear conditions in Mombasa before the sun comes up. Highs of 33 and lows of 25. While we're looking at clear conditions in Malindi at 26, we'll see highs of 32. Kisumu's cloudy at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's cloudy at 16, highs of 28 today. Looking into Kampala, it's raining this morning at 19, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Raining as well in Dar es Salaam at 26. We'll see highs of 32. Mostly cloudy conditions in Johannesburg at 14, highs of 23 today. While in Lagos, we'll see highs of 34. Currently mostly clear at 27. And in Kinshasa, it's clear at 25, highs of 32 and lows of 23. -1 into early Friday afternoon in Beijing, highs of 4 and lows of -8. It's raining in Paris at 10. We'll see highs of 13 and lows of 4 today. Mostly cloudy conditions in London at 9, and we'll see highs of 12. 16 will be the high in a windy New York on Thursday night. It's raining as well at 10. We'll see lows of 10.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
All right,
Nairobi.
20 after 6.
Everybody saying good morning, and Edwin is concerned this morning. Good morning, tune in from Thika Road. And now that Eric Latiff has decided not to run for political office, can he give us some political direction? Please, Eric, think about it. And let us know. Teacher Bunde says good morning, tuned in from Kajiado.
I'll do like the Google lady. Head southeast. That's good direction.
Oh, okay. Well done.
Turn left on Kitale Lane.
Yeah. Have you noticed, whenever she
Sayo
tells
Kimau.
you to turn, your destination will be on the left. Turn left, and you don't turn left. She gets so frustrated. You can hear her the next time she comes and tells you. Because, she can't tell you do a U-turn. So she has to start calibrating. So how do I bring this fool back to this place?
Where I told him
and
to
he's
go.
past the intersection. Yes, the next one you can even hear her saying, head southwest.
So, Edwin,
Uh-huh.
head southwest.
Yes.
Okay. Eddie Odwar is listening in from Kuru. Ndu has just brought back memories of childhood by reminiscing about the fairy tales of them times. Indeed, Snow White and the 40 Thieves, however, made me laugh. You know, it could be a thing, CT. You could patent this one. Joroge is tuned in from Thika and from precisely the Copperbelt province in Zambia. That's where Dexter Mutande is tuned in from this morning. Peter Ongera is right here over the hill in Lukenya. Pauline Shiro Mungai is also in a tickle because of CT and his thieves. Good morning. That's what Cyprian says. He's tuned in from Nakuru. Hey, Bet is tuned in from Mombasa. Good morning, tuned in from South Africa, Bloemfontein. That's where Shandi Sebudi is. Doha also. Kefas is there this morning. And good morning, Team TSR. Stanley says, us, a man of the people stories, should meet behind the white tent. Hey, all right. Reti Dennis and Buddha Wamai. Davy Reri, Constance Chilese, also from Zambia, tuning in from Kampala. Ntegeka Ezra Emmanuel, thanks for the show. Thanks for tuning in as well. Daniel, good morning to you. Odero, we see you. David, Alex, Caris, everybody. Happy Friday. Good morning.
Karibuni, City, the proverb.
Yes. A leader in the community without a pot belly is a stingy man. I like this proverb.
A leader in the community without a pot belly.
He's a stingy man. This one is an apology. There's no they here. Stingy man.
Stingy man. I like it.
You do? Leader must have a pot belly.
Yes.
How else do people know that you have means?
And you're eating them all for yourself.
Your pot belly is the proclaimer.
It precedes you.
Tells the story.
Before you enter.
Yes, he tells the whole story. So,
Kabisa. This one is a kiongos.
But it's something even to date. People believe. Say, hey, see, kiongozi.
Anaishi vizuri.
Yes. Somebody who's clearly struggling to walk.
Yes.
Waddling.
Waddling. Yes, leader.
I can see you're trying to waddle.
Kiongos.
and gasping for breath.
Hey, okay. Hey, so let's look at the newspaper headlines. The Standard e-paper is available on Google Play Store and Apple App Store, and also you can access the Standard website, www.standardmedia.co.ke.
We can see our good friend John C.B. Okumu has been honored at the inaugural Kenya Theatre Awards. It was a really good thing to see yesterday. Chapeau, mon ami. Really good story there. Veteran thespian John C.B. Okumu was one of those honored at the Kenya Theatre Awards held at the Kenya National Theatre Wednesday. Day before yesterday, evening. It was a hive of activity as the thespian showed up in support for one another. He's done good work, and the curtain has not fallen on his career in any way whatsoever. And so this is honoring the arts, and I think it's a good thing when this can be done. So chapeau once again. If I can go to the next page of what can be causing or what might be causing some jitters. Queries as Uhuru cabinet clocks 1 year without a full meeting. Key government decisions must be discussed and later approved by a full cabinet for them to become part of policy. CSs have been attending the regular weekly subcommittee meetings chaired by Matiang'i on Tuesday every week. For 1 year, however, President Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet has not convened, raising questions and fears over whether it meets the high threshold of collective responsibility for government policy. Traditionally, the cabinet used to meet every Thursday until last year, when things drastically changed, first with the COVID-19 pandemic and also the fallout between the president and his deputy. The cabinet is an important arm of the executive arm of government as enshrined under Article 130 of the Constitution. It consists of the president, deputy president, attorney general and cabinet secretaries. The last full cabinet meeting was held on February 18th, 2021, exactly 1 year ago today. But on that day, the president broke the tradition and included chief administrative secretaries and principal secretaries for the meeting that, among others, discussed Jubilee's Big Four agenda and Vision 2030 flagship projects, which form part of President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy projects. So the question is, why have they not met? Since then, the CSs have instead been attending routine subcommittee meetings chaired by Interior and Coordination of National Government Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. The teams meet every Tuesday to deliberate on various government business within their dockets. Uhuru expanded Matiang'i's role in 2019 to a super CS. So there are a number of bills that require cabinet approval in order for them to then become part of government policy. There's a list of 19 of them here that are currently under discussion. So the question that comes in now is that if you don't have full representation of cabinet, how then will you form government policy?
This story appears to be just going around and biting its own behind. On the one hand, the story says the president has not convened a cabinet meeting. Then on the other hand, the story says the president has convened cabinet meetings virtually. And it's quoting members of the cabinet and people who know. And then also, the story says that the cabinet, through the executive order, where he made Matiang'i a super CS, that the super CS has been holding meetings with his cabinet colleagues every Tuesday, and they've been discussing things. And then the cabinet has been meeting virtually. So the cabinet has been meeting. Is that not so? I mean, is the story not saying that? Because if a cabinet has actually come up with an efficient way of doing work, so yeah, they're talking to Amukoa Anangwe, who worked in the Moi cabinet, where they used to meet every Thursday without fail, unless Moi is out of the country or there's something major. Okay, sawa. The Kibaki cabinet used to meet. Okay, sawa. The Uhuru cabinet used to meet, and then COVID. And meetings are virtual. And now there's a cabinet committees meet. The coordination committee of cabinet meets. The cabinet holds periodic virtual meetings. How can we say the cabinet has not met in a year? What's the story telling us?
I actually don't see that there's any cause for alarm here. I think meetings are going on. I think deliberations are happening.
So what is that we...
Because they've not had a full head-on, face-to-face meeting in 1 year, the assumption or the illusion is that they have not met.
And especially because Ruto has not attended a meeting.
Because Ruto has not been in those meetings, then the cabinet has not met.
Okay. It isn't for no reason that every time an issue arises, the general public tends to, after deliberation, long, short, or otherwise, they tend to point a finger at the media. Sometimes we do ourselves a great injustice in the way we go about reporting things. However, on page 8 of the Business Daily...
Let's do traffic.
Traffic.
Okay.
How are you going to put a kink in a man's say like that? He was ready to go, man.
Still ready.
Pause. 30 minutes after 6. Time for us to look at what's happening on the roads, and then we look at page 8 of the Business Daily soon afterwards. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Malindi.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. They let you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
Ceci, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
Not looking too bad in the city today. Building up on Jogo Road, getting out towards the roundabout at City Stadium and then onto Landis Road. But again, not too packed. So this is a good thing. Uhuru Highway is building up and it looks like it's going to be crazy today. We're going to have to watch, see. If you can get off Uhuru Highway within the next 30 minutes, you might be good. It's already starting now. So that work that's happening just around General Motors coming off Mombasa Road is looking pretty good and it's going pretty fast. There might be hope still. Gong Road building up as well. Coming out of Westlands is doing its thing. The thickest superhighway is like magic. 1 minute it's not there and then boom, it's there. And it's crawling all the way beyond Clayworks today already and very early. Juja Road also in and outbound traffic. Keep an eye on that one. Kiambu Road also building up a little bit here and there. So let's keep an eye on things. It looks like it's going to be a crazy Friday. But let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
27 minutes to 7. Page 8
of the Business Daily.
Right.
KRA loses 6.5 billion fight with Coca-Cola bottlers. Coca-Cola is it. Now,
touche.
Kenya Revenue Authority had this battle with Coca-Cola, which started earlier than 2012. It was a simple matter. Should they levy tax on bottles that have been returned, wash that process of cleaning these bottles that have been returned, blah, 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 at the various bottling plants in Nairobi, Kisumu, Nakuru, wherever it is, okay? Quote number 1, okay? Said, Apana, they should pay tax. Went to Court of Appeal, overturned it, said, forget it. That one, not going to work. Supreme Court agreed. Now, problem. KRA wanted this thing to be revisited so that it could begin from the very beginning, meaning do not pass go. Just go straight to go. Okay? Yes. And do not collect 200.
No.
So, the court has said, what are you talking about? Nothing of that sort is going to happen.
This is which court now? Supreme Court or Court of Appeal?
This one, my friend, the Supreme Court.
Wow.
We were told to reopen the case. The Supreme Court, we are not opening the case. That we are not doing. Yes. And this is what they're saying, that the KRA had not taken the matter with the seriousness it deserved. Okay? Because one of the things that they said, it was, the language here is actually fairly strong. Injudicious, the dispute, and also brazen in flouting the directions of the court's deputy registrar.
So they're not going to pay the 6.5?
They're not paying the 5.6.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
They're not paying.
They're not paying,
Yes. Supreme Court, they're not paying.
Oh.
As I was reading this, I was thinking to myself, why didn't they go for the alternate
dispute resolution?
Because that one is not in the public, it's rarely in the public domain. And you can chit-chat and discuss and agree and find ways of, okay? Or why didn't they just go for mediation?
So the Supreme Court has basically said that they ignored there's
some requirements that they were asked to follow, they didn't.
And for that reason,
they're being insincere. You said you were given directions you don't follow. Appellant Court gave its ruling. Supreme Court gave its ruling, and you want us to reopen this thing. You're being insincere. We're not reopening it.
Leave us alone.
Then you go.
We're not reopening this thing.
Wow.
It's unconscious.
The Supreme Court has been busy. Yesterday, it also chappered legislators a nice one. So in 2014, members of Parliament, National Assembly and the Senate passed a law, and this was the County Government Act, amended it in 2014, where they created a new mongrel and they called it the County Development Boards. Okay? Now, the whole idea here by the legislators was, we come from counties, we represent people in counties, even at the National Assembly and the Senate, okay? Now, what we need to do is to have a harmonized way of working, all of us, and look at development in our counties. So we shall create a county development board, which shall be chaired by the county senator. The vice chair shall be the governor. Okay?
Uh-huh.
The vice chair is the governor. Members will include all the MPs of all the constituencies in the county, the woman rep of the county, the deputy governor, the leader of majority in the county assembly, and the leader of minority in the county assembly. Other members then will include the chair of the finance committee, the chairman of the county public service board, the county secretary, the county commissioner, who represent the national government. See that whole hodgepodge of... So everybody who is anybody in this county will sit in this committee called the County Development Board. It will be chaired by the senator of the county. And the governor, who is the chief executive of the county, is a vice chair. And the other members of this are all the MPs in the county. The woman rep of the county.
MCS?
The MCA is just the chair, the leader of the majority, leader of minority, and the chair of the finance committee. So if you look at it, the county government is a minority in this committee, in this board. Because it's only the governor, the deputy governor, the leader of majority, the leader of minority, the chair of the finance committee. 5.
Remind me again what the job of this committee is?
The board. Oh, let me tell you. The board. The work of the board is... I'm looking for the part.
Anytime today would be great.
The work of the board was basically to consider and approve any county development plans before they are tabled in the county assembly for consideration.
What?
Among other things.
Oh, okay.
Right?
This another duty.
So any development that this county wants to do shall be discussed at this apex body called the County Development Board before it's taken to the county assembly. So basically what we're saying is that senators and MPs were going to be in charge of county funds. Okay? County development funds, any money that comes from NHIF and is going into budget for development must be approved by this team.
I thought this was the work of the assembly.
Yes, but now there's a coordinating board.
No.
So this was in 2014. The county governors were up in arms. Were like, no. They challenged this and they went to court in 2014. In 2015, High Court judges Isaac Lenaola, Mombi Ngoge, George Odunga said that act is unconstitutional, null and void, on account that senators, MPs, and the national government have no duty sitting in the County Development Board to determine development projects of the county. It's a separate level of government. The judges said the act created an illegal entity whose composition would interfere with the mandate and functions of county governments, which is a big threat to devolution. They also said the act was an express violation of the doctrine of separation of powers because it gives senators, MPs, and the national government to extend their mandate where they have no jurisdiction. Aggrieved by the High Court, the senators appealed. But in June 2019, 5 Court of Appeal judges, Philip Waki, Patrick Kiage, Gatembo Kairu, Fatuma Sichale, and Otieno Odek, dismissed that appeal. Not satisfied by the decision of the High Court and the Court of Appeal, the senators moved to the Supreme Court, claiming the High Court and the Court of Appeal erred by denying them the chance to control county development projects. Yesterday, Supreme Court judges Martha Koome, Justices Mohammed Ibrahim, Smokin Wanjala, Njoki Ndongo, and William Okoh declared that it was illegal for the senators to seek control of the county affairs through the back door when the Constitution only mandates them to oversight counties at the national level.
So forget about it.
Is that not definitive?
Senators may go now to the East African Court of Justice.
For crying out
Actually, why don't they just go to The Hague?
While they're at it, they can go to The Hague.
Yeah, because we are elected by the people.
The work will just continue. What did they say? That they want to oversight
Ask yourself
county development projects.
Can you imagine?
Ask yourself a simple question.
Absolute rubbish are we talking about? You want to oversight county development projects before it goes to the National
This is
Assembly.
not even oversighting.
Before it goes to the county assembly.
This is not oversighting. This is
It's approval.
making the decision.
Yeah, it's the approval for you to spend the money.
You are the government.
Do you really think that this discussion would even be taking place if counties didn't have the amount of monies that they receive?
Of course, now it's the money that is making people their body hot.
It's like the sad someone said, you know something, Bana, this Senate thing, you know, we don't control any money.
Yeah.
So how do we get to control some money?
So that we can be a little bit more important.
But I mean, the people who thought this thing through didn't clearly think it through. What did they think was going to happen?
That's a very good question.
This is in 2014, okay? Among the senators that passed this bill are Kiraito Morongi and Anyang' Nyong'o, who are now governors.
So they realized this thing wasn't going to work. So the thing is,
they jumped.
Yes, become governor.
Yeah, and then now I think they may be breathing a sigh of relief because essentially these people would have been deciding what they can or cannot spend in their county.
Can you imagine?
Come on, man. Now they must be quite happy.
Can you imagine? What is the name of the Meru governor? Medeka Linturi. Senator.
Yeah.
Medeka Linturi is the one who decides what Kiraito Murungi would do.
How's that going?
No.
Let's take a break.
Very happy.
Ile mambo iko hii Kenya, as Uhuru would say. It's 17 minutes to 7. Quick break. We'll look at other headlines shortly.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Ndu, what are you reading?
There are things going on in The Hague. Witnesses have asked Gicheru to pay a relative's hospital bill, according to the ICC. The ICC's star witness against lawyer Paul Gicheru asked for financial help from the lawyer to foot his uncle's medical bill. During the third day of Mr. Gicheru's trial, it emerged that the first witness, P0800, had asked for the lawyer's mobile number from another witness, and when he got it, sent Gicheru a text asking him for money to pay the relative's medical bill. The witness admitted that he sent the text but never got a reply from the lawyer. I want to pick up where we left off yesterday, and this was concerning your representation, that at some point you sent an SMS message to Mr. Gicheru because of a relative being in hospital and needing to pay medical bills, Gicheru's lawyer, Michael Carvanas, asked. When pressed by Carvanas, the witness asked the trial chamber 3 Judge Maria Samba to go to a private session for fear that his uncle and people at home would identify him. But Carvanas protested, saying that he needed to question him in the full glare of the world and particularly Kenyans. So what are we saying here is that these witnesses, whereas they are claiming in some cases that they had been bribed to recant their testimony, at the same time, they were seeking help from the said person who is said to have bribed them, right? I'm not intending to make reference to the names. It is important to get this on record in front of the people in Kenya and around the world. He has come here. He has made allegations. I am well aware of his need for protection, according to Carvanas. It also emerged that he had many SIM cards and mobile phones, despite being under ICC Witness Protection Unit. The witness claimed that he had to change SIM cards for security reasons. However, the court heard that he talked to a witness codenamed person number 17 without the knowledge of his witness protection handlers, because they essentially need to know everybody you're talking to on a daily. You had many phones and many SIM cards that you had not told investigators about, Carvanas asked. The witness replied, I communicate without informing them that I was changing numbers. Where I felt matters of security start with myself. Asked why he kept changing the numbers after communicating with other witnesses, he said, I changed the number because I communicated with them and I did not know who else they communicated with. So there was a back and forth, really trying to, and I see from the side of the defense, really prosecuting this testimony of this witness, saying, you can't say that you were bribed on one side, and then on the other side, we are seeing that you're asking the same person who is said to have bribed you
to help you with medical bills.
With your medical bills.
Is that a bribe? Is that support?
What is it exactly? Or is there an assumption that I'll help you because I had previously helped you? Which
Well,
one is
if you've shown a willingness to help,
Yeah.
Go all the way.
So maybe
yes,
we need a little
precisely.
bit
Means
more,
when
eh?
another problem arises, I can come back to you.
Now Kavanas has some oomph or some pep in his step because he's going to push this and say, look, these guys who are coming to tell you that we paid them money here.
So it's just Harambe. That's what happens in Kenya.
People are in hospital.
That's what
we're
happens
doing.
in Kenya. We do Harambes all the time via WhatsApp group, or you just call someone directly. As long as I know you, I mean, you're a friend.
Hello?
Yeah. Hey. Where? Another matter. Wajir has 2 governors now.
Yes, it does.
Hey. So remember, the governor of Wajir was impeached by the county assembly, and this was confirmed by the Senate in May last year. And then the governor went to court challenging that entire process of impeachment. He had already gone to court. The court had issued some temporary order saying, no, Senate, do not discuss this impeachment. Senate went ahead and discussed, because Senate cannot be controlled by anyone. They went ahead and discussed the impeachment. They passed the impeachment. And the following day, the Senate made a vote at about 8 p.m. and by midnight, the decision of the Senate had been gazetted. The following day, at about 12:30 or 1 something p.m., the Deputy Governor of Wajir, Ahmed Mukhtar, took oath of office as the new governor. By the time he was taking oath of office, a high court sitting in Meru had issued orders stopping him from taking oath of office. But by the time the order left Meru and arrived in Wajir, they found a governor who has already taken oath of office. So
And sitting.
Nothing. So it has been a back and forth between former Governor Mohammed Abdi Mohammed and current Governor Ahmed Mukhtar. Just the day before yesterday, Wednesday, the High Court sitting in Meru ordered the governor to resume office, ordered Ahmed Mukhtar to resume his previous role as the deputy governor, and that this governor should be sworn in a couple of days. So now, who is the governor of Wajir County?
Lawfully.
Yes.
Because one has been sworn in by law. Another one has been asked to go back to his position by law. Now, the question is, with the most recent order, it then means that the present governor before him should vacate the position? And did the order state thusly?
What do you mean? The present governor before him? What do you mean?
The present governor...
The former deputy
Mukhtar,
governor. Yes.
Right? Is the governor.
The court has ordered Mukhtar to take over his role as deputy governor. And Mohammed Abdi Mohammed goes back to his position as governor.
So this most recent order supersedes the other one?
No, it doesn't work that way.
No? That's what I was asking.
There's no previous order. I mean, there's only one order from the High Court.
Right. So now this
The
gentleman
other
who
one
had been...
is an impeachment that has gone through the constitutional process of county assembly to Senate.
Okay, so now that he has been sworn in, now that Mukhtar was sworn in as governor, and then you now have a court order saying that former governor should go back and former deputy to resume his position as deputy, then it supersedes whatever happened before.
See, the court in this country is supposed to be the arbiter of last resort. If you do not like what the High Court has come up with, you go to
the Court of Appeal.
The Court of Appeal.
If you don't like what they have said, you
go to the Supreme Court.
Precisely.
So Mukhtar can go to the Court of Appeal if he wants.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
he
for
can.
now, Nani
Mukhtar or the county assembly. Remember the county assembly
is the one who
voted.
impeached him in the first place.
The county assembly impeached him. The Senate confirmed the impeachment. Either of those parties can go to the Court of Appeal.
Remember.
Or a voter of Wajir.
Or even somebody in Meru.
According to our laws, that process that the assembly followed and which culminated in the Senate is also a legal process.
It is.
Yes. And equally binding. I'm saying this because I'm wondering which one is superior to the other.
You see, the court is finding that the process in the county assembly did not follow procedure. That there was no adequate public participation that was subjected to the process of impeaching the governor.
And because of that, then, this man was wrongfully impeached.
Yes. And he also said he was not given an opportunity to be heard. Sufficient opportunity to give his side of the story.
I've found something with the courts and if you call on that you did not have sufficient time to present your side of things. They'll give it to you.
This procedure thing.
Every time. I don't think I've seen anything where they actually find that you were not given adequate time to present your case.
This procedure thing is something that we must take seriously in this country. It took us back to another election, remember?
Yep.
Procedure.
Yep.
Do you remember this famous case? I know it's a totally different sector, but this rape case where the witness sheet did not have a surname, signature of one of the witnesses, and the whole verdict, the whole case was overturned. 2 people were let to go free. Because of that.
Yes.
One signature on a witness list. That's it.
It sounds punitive, but consider the opposite. All right? If indeed the people who are accused, conversationally speaking, were not actually involved, and all the details were in place, it means that witness could have come and given evidence, be it false, and these fellows could have been convicted. And yet, that was not the truth of the matter. So, the law works both ways.
It's true.
And I think in the application of it, one of the things that I am beginning to experience, and I think many Kenyans probably do, is that it doesn't quite align itself to the way you think it should go. And this issue of procedure, this matter of the details of the law. Remember the story we were talking about earlier on about the Coca-Cola issue?
Yeah.
Who would have thought that a matter would go to the Supreme Court and they would say, you're not being paid that money. This 5.6 that you want, you're not going to be paid. Now, that is the law being followed.
Yes.
And somewhere, sorry, go ahead.
No, finish.
No, I was going to say, somewhere along the line, there were lawyers who advised Coca-Cola and said, because they have lawyers, this is something you can do.
Yeah.
But did they exhaustively consider where that particular case would go?
Nope.
I was about to say, I think we may need to think about how to cure some of these things. Because if a motion to impeach is brought to the county assembly by a member, the speaker considers that motion. A sitting is scheduled to discuss the impeachment motion. At what point should we say, okay, so it goes on, and it's also time-bound. Once the impeachment has been approved by the county assembly, there's a time limit within which it must be discussed and dealt with at the Senate. Okay? So matter goes to the Senate. Senate has only a short window of time to consider and then make a decision. Now, you see, all these things are happening very fast. So you are Governor Abdi Mohammed, you feel that the county assembly has not done you justice. By the time you're going to appeal, the Senate is already in motion because the Senate is bound by time.
Yep.
Constitutional timelines. Should we create a gap somewhere and say, okay, Senate go, let the process go. If it goes to the Senate and the Senate approves, before swearing in, create a time for such litigation then to give a window.
So. Because it's akin to that. Anybody here have any objections as to why this cannot happen? I think do create that period because look, a decision that was made, you want to assume that it passed through the thought process, etc., etc., and then on a thread, literally on a thread, the whole case falls apart. Right? So you want to give some time so that these things that probably would pop up later then can be looked over. Because you've wasted time, you wasted resources. Essentially, that's what it looks like. You wasted time, wasted resources, wasted so much, only for them to come and say, all that thing that you did, Sorry. Going back to
in the
square one.
end, it's the people of Wajir who get
At a
injustice.
disadvantage.
Yes.
Yeah.
The disservice is to the people of Wajir who, as far as they're concerned, they elected a governor in 2017. Now, if the governor committed an offense that warranted their impeachment, the people's representatives in the county assembly conducted the impeachment. But now here we have, governor has been going to office, trying to occupy office, trying to... Service.
One of the things that I think our constitution sought to cure were the ills that are pertinent and specific to the way we conduct our business. Again, we may say that the time is a bit short, but given Kenyans as we know them, if you give too much leeway, God alone knows what will happen within that time space. So, again, remember, with every case that we have, we actually getting to understand more and more how it is this constitution of ours actually works. Yes, and how our judicial system works. Everything that we have in this new constitution is brought to the fore whenever we have issues such as this one.
So let's talk about safeguarding our children as they use the internet.
There is Safer Internet Day, and it's celebrated every 8th of February. This year, Communications Authority of Kenya said, you know what, it's about time we started to see what we can do to make the internet safer for our children. And so this particular day was marked with the launch of Cyber Soldiers. So you ask, what is that? It's a safe, easy and fun way for our kids to learn more about the threats that they'll face on the internet, because they will face those threats. It can be a bad, bad world on the internet. Cyber Soldiers is available to play for free on CA's website and best played on phone or tablet. It'll teach our kids, young and old, how to recognize threats on the internet and how to fight them. So you see there's a problem, here is what you can do, and this will come on Cyber Soldiers. The objective of the game is to learn how to deal with them. So here's how parents and kids alike can access the game and online safety tips.
www.ca.go.ke. Select campaigns and then click on either Play Cyber Soldiers or Child Online Protection. Today, let's talk about internet addiction. And this is where you see, is your child addicted to the internet? Are they spending a lot of time on the internet, which is now becoming a compulsive behavior which interferes with normal living and causes severe stress on family, friend, loved ones, and one's environment? Is your child one of those that are spending too much time on the internet, and you can just see they are not able to function? They are looking for the gadget. They're looking for that gadget, whether it's a tablet or a phone. They're looking for it, that they're constantly on it. Trying to have a conversation with them and they are deeply engrossed. That can be an addiction. Indeed. How do you protect your child from internet addiction? We'll be talking about that today. Keep it right here for that. In the next hour, we have a conversation about masks. Are people still wearing masks anyway in this country? Yeah, there's a mask mandate in place. Yes, we're still all required to wear masks. How many times do you actually go to places and you find people properly wearing the masks in various establishments or on the streets or in matatus, in buses? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Dr. Githinji Gitahi will be speaking to us shortly. He has said, maybe it's time we reconsider this mask mandate in the country. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
The African and European heads of state and governments and other leaders are the opening ceremony of the 6th African Union-European Union Summit in Brussels, Belgium. During the two-day summit, the leaders will discuss how both continents can strengthen political and economic ties for greater prosperity. Today, President Kenyatta is expected to co-chair a roundtable session on agriculture and sustainable development. Proposed regulations by the National Health Insurance Fund to impose a penalty on those who fail to register as members, as well as increasing deductions on top earners, has elicited a backlash from Kenyans around the country. The Federation of Kenya Employers, KOTU, and private health sector players say the regulations will aggravate the bad healthcare situation Kenyans find themselves in. These, as the proposed regulations, are NHIF's ways of increasing its funding pool to support the government's universal healthcare coverage. In one among the 5 sets of draft regulations proposed by NHIF, the national insurer states that a person who does not register as a member commits an offence and shall be liable to a penalty not exceeding 20,000 shillings. The Supreme Court has ruled that Gladys Boss' 2013 dismissal as Chief Registrar of the Judiciary was done unlawfully and that she is owed compensation by the Judicial Service Commission. Boss was sacked in October 2013 by the JSC for allegedly misusing 2.2 billion shillings during her tenure as the judiciary regulator. She was also accused of financial mismanagement, insubordination and misconduct in the line of duty. The Supreme Court, however, ruled that Boss sacking violated her right to fair administrative action since JSC, despite making 87 allegations, failed to validate the reasons behind the Uasin Gishu woman representative sacking. Babu Namomba, the head of international relations for William Ruto's presidential campaign, paid a courtesy call to Democratic Republic of Congo head of missions Madam Malenga Omoi Charlotte after Deputy President William Ruto's controversial no cows remarks. Deputy President William Ruto's comments have since brought him under fire, with the leaders from both regions castigating him over his infamous remarks. Head of communications for Ruto's presidential campaign, Hussein Mohammed, said that the meeting underscored that Kenya and DRC will maintain its strong bilateral relationships. Now, the four leaders in Kisumu County who had resolved to work as a team ahead of the coming polls have announced that they will today make public their candidate who will face off with sitting Governor Anyang' Nyong'o in the ODM party primaries. The leaders, Senator Fred Outa, former Governor Jack Ranguma, former East Africa Community Chief Administrative Secretary Ken Obura, and former County Assembly Speaker Onyango Olo, have been going around the county popularizing their bid to unseat Governor Nyong'o in the impending showdown. In the past, leaders allied to Governor Nyong'o, led by his deputy Matthew Willie, have maintained that they are ready to meet anyone from the team in the ballot as the county boss seeks to defend his seat. And Bobasi Member of Parliament Innocent Obiri has ditched Ford Kenya for the Kalonzo Musyoka-led Wiper Democratic Movement Party ahead of the August general elections. The legislator made the move during a One Kenya Alliance tour of the Kisii County. He was received together with 10 other members of County Assembly by the Wiper leader. And Aga Khan University Hospital, Nairobi, has successfully executed a penile implant surgery on a man in his 40s diagnosed with erectile dysfunction. The surgery, a first of its kind in East and Central Africa, was performed on the patient after alternative treatment failed to alleviate his condition. The procedure, which takes approximately an hour to perform, involves implanting a prosthetic device on the penis to allow men with ED to get an erection. Multiple tests conducted on the patient revealed that his condition was a result of severe venous leakage in his manhood. And police are probing the mysterious death of a woman whose lifeless body was discovered in her car outside the Carnival restaurant in Nairobi. The victim has since been identified as a 41-year-old Victoria Nyambura Kamwaro. Confirming the incident, Nairobi Deputy Police Boss James Mugera cited that the woman's body did not have any visible physical injuries when her body was discovered in the vehicle whose engine was still running at the time. According to Mugera, the car had stopped outside the restaurant's premises for a long time, prompting employees to check up on the vehicle only to find the deceased. The body of the deceased has since been moved to a local mortuary pending post-mortem. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Gong Road, some action there. Uhuru Highway also, all the way into the city. If you can avoid Uhuru Highway coming from the CBD, you want to use Gong Road, go, further out and then get onto Mombasa Road if that's what you're trying to do. If you can avoid it today, having less vehicles on that road today will really help a lot of folk because it's really getting messier as the day goes on. And this is because of construction. Langata Road, also the same thing that we see here. Unfortunately, you have to be. If you don't, try to use alternative routes, using the bypass, going the longer route to come, because you're going to spend as much time and probably fuel sitting on Langata Road this morning. Thika Superhighway, it's moving bumper to bumper in some parts, especially between Survey and the Pangani underpass. Look quite packed already. And where there was none before, there is now traffic on Limuru Road into the city. Juja Road also doing that thing. Outer Ring Road is already starting to get packed today. And we're also looking at Kangunda Road joining with Outer Ring. Coming in from the eastern side of the city, quite a lot of traffic this morning. It is Friday and we're getting towards the end of February. Things are starting to pick up quite some. Let's take a look at what it looks like in about half an hour and we will be in traffic hour proper. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
It's
your
7
day.
minutes after 7. Good morning. It's the 18th day of February 2022. Happy Friday, wherever you're tuned in today. Thank you very much for joining us in Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Broadcasting in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, through SpiceFM, and online on YouTube and Facebook to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. Everybody who's tuned in from other parts of the country and Africa and globally, thank you for tuning in. Let's hear the day's proverb from CT.
A leader in the community without a pot belly is a stingy man.
A leader in a community without a pot belly is a stingy man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. And that's not a good thing, is it?
What exactly is not a good thing?
The pot belly, being a leader, being stingy.
Being stingy.
Optics.
Being a stingy leader.
No. I think it fits in with the narrative that one has heard for the longest time about what the optics of a leader in an African setting is. And the belly is the forerunner of the said narrative.
Okay.
If you have a belly, it means you can feed yourself.
Yes.
And so by extension, it is assumed you can feed others.
You can feed others as well.
If you have no belly,
How you can't even feed yourself. You want to feed others.
Umekula ama ni njaa tu inakuleta hapa. All right. So on 14th of February, as people were discussing love, as the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority was considering the price of fuel, others in the profession of medicine were having another separate conversation. And this was being led by the Group CEO of Amref Health Africa, Dr. Githinji Gitahi. A press release released on that day starts this way. Is it time to reduce mask mandates and accelerate vaccine access in Africa? My answer is yes. Dr. Gitahi says all signs indicate that we may be moving from the pandemic to the endemic phase of COVID-19, and the tools used for each phase, and indeed even between phases, are different. Masks, if properly worn, have contributed significantly to reducing the speed of transmission and protecting people and health systems, not eliminating the virus effect, which only changes by host community or change in the virus itself through mutation, like seen with the Omicron variant's dramatic infection rate, but much lower severity. As such, when the risk of transmission is as low as it is now in many countries, we need to rethink current policy to adapt it to the current situation by removing mandatory masks everywhere to, for example, recommending their use indoors in public and accelerating vaccination access for all. Then he goes on now to discuss why. Now, of course, when you hear that, you're like, all right, okay. So are we saying that we start, looking back and saying, globally, there are three things that the WHO has told us. Best ways to avoid to keep yourself safe from COVID. Observe distance, wash your hands regularly, and wear a mask whenever in public. Now, when this conversation then comes up, are we saying, okay, let's now start looking at, globally we are seeing those conversations taking place, remove some of these mandates. Is it about time that we have the same conversation in this country? Is it good or is it not good? Time to have a conversation. Dr. Githinji Gitahi joins us now on video link. He's also online. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning, and how are you all?
Very well.
We are well, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Although it would have been nice to have you in the studio, but we understand where you are. Doc, this one has raised a very big one. And even before we continue, let me just say, yes, in addition to you being the group CEO of AMREF Africa, you also sit on the board of Africa CDC, and you're also sitting on the commission, the African COVID-19 Response Commission. So when it comes to matters of COVID-19, you're right there in the thick of things in looking at how the continent is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. So you are very well informed. And so therefore, when you say, look at how things are going globally, we may be moving from pandemic to endemic phase, and let's start considering the removal of some of these mandates. Please take us through the why. Why should we start having this conversation now?
Well, there are several reasons why we should have this conversation. Most importantly, is that every single tool we have used in managing the pandemic has been used when it is most effective. When you put on curfews, for example, you put curfews when there is a high rate of positivity, and therefore the chance of being infected is very high. Number two, you put curfews when there are many patients going to the hospital and the health system is likely to be overwhelmed, because then you can't take care of people who need oxygen, who need beds. These are the reasons, and this is the data that guides some of these decisions. A mask is also a tool of control of the pandemic, and therefore it should not be assumed that it is an eternal tool. It should be used when it is necessary. You remember, last year I also talked about the curfew that should be reviewed because the cases had come down. And I did that because we had used the curfew for almost 18 months, irrespective of the peak of the infection. It was a constant tool. And it was finally reviewed because it has an impact on livelihood. It has an impact on people's social and economic lives. Not that it's a bad tool, but you use it when it is most effective. Masks are the same. You use them when they are most effective because they have a cost. Masks cost 50 shillings to 70 shillings. Many people cannot afford this, so they have to overuse the mask, which also means that the effectiveness of the mask does not apply, because then it's used over time and therefore it's not protecting the individual. The other thing is that there's a fine. There's a judicial fine if you don't wear the mask, which then puts people at a great disadvantage. And also, there's a cost to the environment because of disposal. So the question then to ask is, because this tool has cost, when should we use it? And we should use it when there is a high infectivity. Right now, we have 1 case in 200, 0.5% positivity. Shouldn't we then lift the mandatory wearing of masks in public and keep it close and say, if the cases start rising, we will reinstitute the policy instead of just having it at a constant cost to people and to the environment? This is the thinking that I'm sharing.
Dr. Ari, even as you say this, those that put this mask mandate in place, I want to assume that when they did this, there was some kind of thinking, or at least it was fueled by some kind of information. To then remove this mandate also, as you're saying, must then be fueled with information. Why would it be that this would not be considered? Seeing the positivity rate drop from when we were teetering at 30% for a very long time, and then now under 1%, shouldn't it then be obvious that certain things need to happen when you've seen it constantly at 1% over the last 90 days, for example? Shouldn't it be that it's almost obvious that that decision be made? Because we're dealing with experts in their field who make these decisions.
Policy decisions are as political as they are scientific. This is what you must remember, that every policy decision is both scientific and political because it affects lives, it affects people. This is why curfew was removed. This is why the government did not leave the curfew until let the pandemic disappear and then get back to the curfew, because there was pressure from people. And therefore, we must always remind the policymakers that actually this is time to have the debate. And this is why my paper or my press release said it is time to review the mask mandate. To review means that the scientists in the Ministry of Health can sit down and say, it is time to review. So based on the data, we are going to make sure that it's not mandatory anymore to wear when you are general public, but in the particular instances, like if you're going into a place where you're going to be indoors for a long time, then we may say that it is mandatory and the implementation is by the outlet. You've seen there's a mandate on vaccine certificate. But how is the implementation? It is actually being done outlet by outlet. It's not. There's no one going along the street saying, "Can you show us your vaccine certificate?" So it is actually the mandate that needs to be reviewed in terms of implementation. Right now, if you want to go and arrest a woman in Busia in the market for not wearing a mask and take her to court and charge her 20,000, you can, because the law provides for it. These are the things that need to be reviewed so that we don't put an extreme burden on the individuals when actually the effectiveness of the mask is at the lowest level because you are unlikely to meet somebody who is positive because the positivity rate is very low. So it is science. And that's why I'm raising the debate. That's all I'm doing, raising the debate.
Right.
And not for Kenya only, for across the continent.
Daktari, why would you say that this positivity rate has gone to the point where it is now? What has happened? And while asking this, I'm also asking myself, so what would cause the opposite to occur? What would raise the positivity rate again?
So there are many factors. If you look at from the time we started, there have been waves, as we call them. There are highs and lows because what happens with the viruses is that they actually start with clusters, okay? So they start with clusters. You have a cluster of susceptible people. That word is important, susceptible, meaning people who are probably not vaccinated, people who probably have low immunity. So it is easy for the virus to move from one person to the other. There are many people, by the way, who come in contact with the virus, but because of host immunity or host conditions, the virus doesn't survive and just doesn't get through the nose or the mouth and therefore is dissipated through what we call antibodies or whatever. Let's not go to science. But there are people who are more likely to get infected. It's not much like HIV. In HIV, you know they are discordant couples. There are people who live with each other. One is positive, the other one is negative. It is science. It is host conditions and also the infectivity of the virus itself. So when you see these waves, it means that there is a highly infectious virus that has infected somebody who is close to a subset of people who are also likely to be infected, and therefore it picks up in a what you call a geometric version, and that creates a rise. But when this population or subset is exhausted, then it starts to drop. But that doesn't mean that there is no other population that's susceptible. It goes and then picks another susceptible population. This is why waves happen. This is why they happen. So this particular one of Omicron was very high because the infectiousness of the virus was almost 10 times the previous one, meaning that even people who are less likely to be infected by the other one could not avoid being infected by this one. So the peak rose, but we also saw that there were fewer people who got severe disease and got admitted, which means that a lot of people got host immunity through this exposure without going to the hospital. And therefore, this is probably now starting to reach the end of the pandemic because we've seen a lot of people have been infected, people are getting vaccinated. What we don't know is how long this immunity will last. So we have to wait and see. But we know that it is coming off the cliff because it has infected the subset available. But that doesn't mean that the immunity will not go, and then maybe in future that will happen again. But we don't know how long. But we have to follow science in terms of the tools we use at different times.
Even as you say this, Doc, so again, there's so much that's unpredictable about this. So the question is, if we say, let's ease up on some of these mandates, and then something happens later, we're not saying have it as a position of eternity, right? If something happens later, then you can reintroduce. Is that what we're saying, essentially? That we see that the positivity rate is so low today, but then something could happen tomorrow, knock on wood, but then there is another variant that comes about. Then we can say, because we've seen this and we see that there may be a rise in infections in the near future, then you can reintroduce the wearing of masks, for example. That's part one of the question. And then part two is that you say, releasing some of these measures, maybe masks don't need to be worn in public. Where then should they be worn, according to what you're thinking right now?
So, number one is that all medical tools we use, not only the masks for COVID, when we are looking at vaccination for children, we look at effectiveness and convenience. And then you say, this vaccine, because everything you use has some negative effect, whether it's a vaccine, whether you're taking a painkiller, everything has something that you can call an adverse event because it can happen in 1 or 2 people out of a million, doesn't matter. So when you're doing a medical intervention, You look at when it is most effective because you want to make sure that the benefit outweighs the risk. Okay? So when you're giving measles vaccine to children, or you're giving HPV vaccine for young girls to avoid getting cervical cancer, or indeed you're giving children a malaria vaccine, which is a new one, you must always ask yourself, at what time in their age is it most effective? If you didn't ask that question, you would say, let's just give all children so that we just have a shotgun strategy, just in case. But we don't do that. So we shouldn't do that with tools like masks. We should say, because they also have an impact on individuals because of the cost and also the harassment and human rights because of the fine that's put on them. And also, people can make a decision not to go to work or to go to hospital because they don't have a mask. And they say, until I get money for a mask, I'll not seek medical care. Or I'll not go to work. So their impact. So use it when it's most effective. And that applies to all tools, not just masks. And that applies to curfew as well. On this other question that you're asking, where should they be used? This is what we need to look at. We need to look at the data available. We need to look at, for example, now we're saying we have 28 cases out of 600 tests. Where did these 28 come from? Are they from particular communities? Are they from particular counties? When you trace back, did they arise from particular situations? Then in those situations, you say, if 50% of these 28 cases are all related to a church event, then you say, in church, because there is still a risk, then we advise people to wear masks. What if all these cases actually came up in a particular county? Then you say, in this county, please wear masks for this period. That is how we follow science. So we need to analyze that data to decide where the masks should still be mandatory and in other places, discretionary. So we are not saying remove them completely. I might decide I'm 86 and I'm going to a market, I'll wear my mask because I know there's a high risk. That's what we are saying. Or that's what I am saying. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
You say this is, going by even what the government has done previously. There was a nighttime curfew. The nighttime curfew was lifted. There was restriction on the number of people who would, for example, board public transport. That was also lifted. So if we say, let's review the mask mandate, what else can we also review?
Actually, I would say right now, we've fairly reviewed most of the restrictions. You have seen that travel has now been, of course, restrictions have been lifted. So we can say that the only things that are remaining, the constant hygiene, like hand washing, that is constant. And we do that not for COVID only. You do that for child pneumonia, you do that for diarrhea. So those should stay. Wash your hands when you're entering a place. And that I love. That's one of the biggest benefits of this pandemic, that our sanitation and hygiene is going to improve, and our supply of water and our recognition and conscience about sanitation. But if you look at the only other mandates that are remaining, it is masks. But we know that the permanent solution to this pandemic and any other is vaccination. That we know that when you vaccinate people, then that is the permanent tool, because then you create immunity in their bodies, and therefore, whether there is a wave or not, their bodies are protected. And that's what I'm saying in my press release, that vaccination mandates, not mandatory vaccination. These two are different. Vaccination mandates must continue, must be implemented, but we must also resolve, if you look at that press release, you must also resolve convenient access, because there is a view that the reason we are not achieving vaccination numbers is because people are hesitant. In my experience, going out to the counties and to other countries, the challenge is people don't have convenient access. If you find somebody who leaves their house at 5 a.m. to go to the wholesale market, buy vegetables, then go and queue them and sell until 6, when do they get vaccinated? If all vaccination centers open at 10, close at 4, and don't open on Saturday and Sunday, then we say people don't want to be vaccinated. So these are the things we need. We need to focus our efforts to the tools that are of the day. And that is where we should put our efforts, not putting our efforts on. And you see, let me just say, you've seen the political rallies. How many people have been charged 20,000 in a political rally? Zero. So we need to use science the way it should be used and stop overburdening communities when we don't have to. But when we have to, we bring the masks back and make them mandatory.
You speak of a matter of cost. Now, there's a cost, of course, to transporters, because they are required, especially those that are crossing borders, to have vaccination certificates and also PCR test certificates. Should this also be reviewed? I mean, does it really make sense to continue saying that if you're crossing over from Kenya into Uganda, transporting goods, you must produce a certificate showing that you're negative?
This is another burden, and you've raised an important point. I think the question here is, what are the differential positivities between countries? Okay, if we need to look at that. If you're going to Uganda or Tanzania, what's the positivity rate in those different countries? Number one. Number two is we do what we call genetic sequencing or gene sequencing. So you can tell what variants are in one country that are not in the other country. So again, countries need to compare data and say, are we carrying exactly the same gene sequences? So that then there is no danger to each country. Or are we actually having different gene sequences of this virus? If you're having different gene sequences, then we must limit the transfer of these gene sequences country to country, and therefore we must do PCR testing. So that's, again, a scientific decision. The next question is, what is the risk of transmission? Then finally, what is the vaccination rate country to country? You have seen countries now saying, if you're vaccinated, we don't need a PCR test from you. Mm-hmm. So this is how we need to determine, and therefore countries need to sit together. There is what we call international health regulations that were put together in 2015 and in 2005, and these regulations are the ones that guide how countries relate to each other in terms of what they demand from each other and how they correlate across borders. So, but sometimes we tend to actually put policies and then there's no review. They just keep on going and going and ongoing. And unless there is public pressure, like on curfew, and now there needs to be public pressure on our scientific pressure, on masks and on testing, so that then policymakers take a time to review them. And when they review and the data says we need to continue, then we must continue. But when the data says it's time to review, then we review. But we shouldn't just assume that they should continue forever.
Okay. I'm looking at, when we're talking about then international agreements between country to country, getting information from what another country is doing and then comparing notes on the same. Now, here we are on a continent looking at Kenya, where, to be honest, for the last 2.5 going to 3 years of this pandemic, that the numbers are still relatively low. I mean, can be looked as that COVID has not penetrated as it has in other parts of the world, which is true. We cannot run away from that. So, shouldn't there be then a different set of rules that governs how we deal with it here? In as much as we're seeing other countries doing different things, shouldn't the fact that because the numbers have been so low here, then change the way in which we operate in terms of mandates on several things?
So law is relative. Law is quite relative. And let me explain this. That's actually the reason, assuming that the COVID virus did not have severity of disease and therefore people got infected but they didn't end up in hospital. You do not need any mandate, you do not need any curfew, you don't need lockdowns, because you just tell people when you get infected, go home, take some water, and you're fine. The reason that these restrictions are put is that the guide is largely to protect lives and the health systems, or health systems and lives. So even if the cases that are ending up in a hospital or the recorded deaths are not as high as they are in other countries, you have to look at the capacity of your health system. So the moment you get a health system, because probably when we started, you will remember, we had barely 500 ICU beds across the country. Now, if you have 500 beds and then you need 1,000 people in those beds, then it doesn't matter that your number is not as high as Italy, but it means that you have to do something to reduce the number of people requiring ICU from increasing. And how do you do that? By reducing the force of infection. How do you do that? Telling people to stay at home, to wear masks, and to put curfew until you know that actually the numbers needing ICU can be taken care of. So that's what I'm saying. Law is relative, and it has to depend on how strong your health system is to take care of the numbers that need your care when they need it, and in a timely manner.
Dr. Aria, the African COVID-19 Response Commission, what exactly do you do? What does this commission do?
So this commission was put together by the African Union through the chairmanship of President Cyril Ramaphosa. You will remember that when the pandemic hit Africa, President Ramaphosa was the chair of the African Union at that point. And he, because of his determination, he did work a lot with Africa Centers for Disease Control to ensure there was a continental response. You will remember that for the first time, Africa took concerted efforts together, During Ebola, there was a lot of disjointed action across the continent. But during this time, because of the President of Africa CDC and his chairmanship, there was concerted effort. Countries worked together. There were a lot of task forces created. Countries were meeting every week. Heads of states were meeting to ensure, for example, to fight for PPEs, to coordinate PPEs in the country, coordinate vaccines, coordinate response. So because of this success, actually Africa's response, as we discussed earlier, was fairly good. And therefore, even after he left the chairmanship, there was a feeling that his experience during this time was still needed by African Union. So he was appointed the Africa COVID-19 champion. And he felt that he could not execute that mandate without professionals and experts across Africa assisting him. So he created a commission of 15 people. That's the commission I sit on. And this commission is charged with, most importantly, one, looking at continuity of supply of medical commodities and ensuring security of commodities across the continent, not only for this pandemic, but any future one. So the commission has a big wing of looking at vaccine production in the continent, vaccine markets, and how vaccines can actually be available to the continent, not only for COVID, but also for others. Because I don't know whether you know that 99% of all vaccines used in Africa are imported. So there's a big agenda to make sure, how do we ensure this changes? Number two is what is called the Africa recovery. We need social and economic recovery during and post the pandemic. That is the working group that I chair on how to ensure Africa's recovery. And we do know that if you build a health system, then you can support the recovery, social and economic recovery, because then people can go to work. Children who are healthy go to school, and adults who are healthy go to earn. So I am chairing the working group on Africa's recovery and working with Ramaphosa and African Union to ensure we do have a strong health system, including building the Africa Task Force on Health Workforce, building the Africa Pandemic Preparedness Authority to ensure we are never in this place again in future. And then, of course, there is a working group on resource mobilization to ensure we have money to do this work, and the working group of gender to ensure that actually any future policies are gender responsive and they don't inordinately affect women. You will remember during curfew, women couldn't go to the labor because curfew started at 7, and there was no provision for women to transition from women in labor to go to the hospital. We should never have those situations again. So these are the issues that we are looking at, and whenever we make a policy brief or direction, then President Ramaphosa takes it to the African Union, and then the heads of state debate it and either adopt it or ask to go back to the Commission. 2 weeks ago, when there was the Africa Summit, we got the 2 treaties and several treaties approved or endorsed by the African Union, including the formation of the Africa Pandemic Preparedness and Response Authority to be under the Africa CDC, and also the formation of the Africa Health Workforce Task Team, which is going to look at how we ensure the continent has adequate health workers for ensuring that we have an adequate response in future.
What have you done so far to make sure that we get vaccines, especially vaccine production within the continent? For COVID, starting with COVID.
Yeah, so there are several things. Number one is that, of course, for now, we need vaccines now. So even as we talk about future production of COVID vaccines in Africa, we must ensure there is justice. And that's why we've been making noise, and we have made a lot of noise and called out those who are colonizing Africa by holding vaccines and then delivering them to Africa when they are near expiry. We have been very loud on this, and we have been very candid on it. The next thing is that we cannot always rely on our neighbors and rely on goodwill. So we have to build capacity in the continent. But my voice has been that Africa must not be seen to be building capacity for vaccination for Africa only. Because then people will say, oh, you're manufacturing only for Africa, then we are not worried about your quality. You can do whatever bad quality you want. You can do whatever you want. Africa must look at manufacturing vaccines for the world, and therefore it can become a center of excellence, uses its skills and labor markets to manufacture vaccines for the world. So there has been formation of the Partnership for Africa Vaccine Manufacturing by Africa Centers for Disease Control. I am an advisor on that PAVM, and what we are looking at is how do we actually increase the current 1% of vaccine manufactured in Africa to 60% within 10 years, and then looking at what technology is going to be needed and where does that technology come from. So we are doing technology transfer with other countries that are ahead of us. Number 3 is what labor is needed, what human resources are needed, and how do we train them? How do we create hubs of knowledge? And finally, who manufactures? Because you can't tell every single country. If you go to India and say we are improving vaccine manufacturing, it's 1 billion people in one market. In Africa, we have 1 billion people or plus in 54, 55 markets. So you can't tell all countries this is a strategy. Please go manufacture. Because then what do you do with all those vaccines? You end up with white elephants. So you're also looking at what are the strategic sites for manufacturing of which vaccine. And that is where we are right now. But we've engaged also the people who purchase vaccines. We've engaged the people who have the knowledge. We've engaged member states in this conversation. And that plan is shaping up.
Do you think that it would be necessary to then demarcate the continent, and I'm saying this as separately from what happens with the rest of the world because of some of these issues that we see that have dogged us for the longest time, to be able to be bold enough to have the conversation and say, well, look, you know what, we can do this for ourselves. The other day we saw that South Africa might get this provisional status to then start to develop and produce, and that is essentially something that could go throughout the rest of the continent. Is it about time, though, that instead of trying to join the table and then sit under the table and get what falls off from the meal, be bold enough to start having the conversations to say, look, we can do this for ourselves and we don't really need the permission of, the quote unquote big companies and bigger countries who have previously controlled the conversation?
Good conversation. And we have to realize that we have several constraints. If you remember at the start of the pandemic, Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca was significantly funded by their public taxes to do the research and development for the vaccine. Because what we see is the end product. There is a huge investment in research and development to ensure that the vaccine is effective and safe. Now, how much money does Africa have to actually support research and development? And is there a budget called Africa, or is that national member states budget? Is there a framework we can create that member states can actually contribute to a research and development fund that is held at Africa Centers for Disease Control, at Africa Union, that can be able to fund public research and development to actually prepare Africa for the next pandemic? So these are questions we have to ask, and that question is being asked. Number two is that after you've done this research and development, where do you produce the vaccines? You need to produce them where already capacity exists. We know that capacity exists in several countries. South Africa already has capacity for manufacturing vaccines. Morocco has, Algeria, Senegal has, Kenya is developing. I've seen Uganda developing. We have to start asking this question and say, let us go where the capacity is and then finance the research and development. It is so, I think the US funded Moderna and Pfizer almost $1.5 billion. That is a conversation that needs to be had, because you can't expect SpiceFM manufacturing company to go look for $1 billion or even 500 million shillings to do research and development. And how does that money come back? Because vaccines are public goods. They are not just sold in the market. Sure. So there is a financing conversation. There is allocation, what you're calling, allocation of distribution hubs that is being had, and countries have already been identified. And after that, it is shaping the market. Because even if you manufacture vaccines in Kenya, Morocco, and Algeria, then what about if the other countries don't buy them? Then what do they do with them? Because they can't manufacture only for their country. Yeah. So there's also the market-shaping conversation. It's not an easy conversation to have.
Dr. Gitahi, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Githinji Gitahi is a Group CEO of Amref Health Africa, also sits on the board of Africa CDC, is also among the experts who are in the Africa COVID-19 Response Commission. He says it's time to review the mask mandates, not only in Kenya, but in many countries across Africa, because of the level of positivity that we are seeing with COVID-19. We'll open up the phone lines after this quick break to hear from you. 0719-012-600. Do you agree with Dr. Gitahi? Should we review the mask mandates in Kenya? It's 28.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The sun is coming out in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 15 today. Sunny conditions at 16 in Nakuru, highs of 28 and lows of 15. Nyeri is sunny at 14, highs of 28 and lows of 13. It's partly sunny at 14 in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 12. It's partly sunny in Mombasa, 26, highs of 33 and lows of 25. And we're looking at partly sunny conditions in Malindi at 26. It'll go to highs of 32 and lows of 25. Kisumu is cloudy at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 19. And Kakamega, sunny at 16, highs of 28 and lows of 14. We're looking at rain showers continuing in Kampala at 20, highs of 27, and it's also still raining in Dar es Salaam at 25. It'll go to highs of 32. All right, in Lagos, mostly clear at 26, highs of 34 and lows of 26, while cloudy in Johannesburg as the sun comes up. 23 will be the high and lows of 15. It's now raining in Kinshasa at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 23.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
We are in traffic hour, solid at this point, and we're looking at traffic on the Thika Superhighway that has built up quite considerably. Yeesh, what's happening on Mombasa Road? We're looking at Airport North Road and looking at Old Mombasa Road now towards the ICD. Quite a lot of traffic there. Inbound traffic from Imara Daima as well. The Southern Bypass is taking on hit, and that's just from the Likoni interchange, which has a spill out of traffic coming from industrial area. Okay, so that continues on Jogo Road as well. Langata Road is also quite packed. Aerodrome Road, folks who are trying to get onto Huru Highway from Langata Road today, sorry, because Huru Highway probably is not where you want to be this morning. The Thika Superhighway still continues jam-packed all the way past Clayworks today, and we're looking at Kiambu Road, both in and outbound traffic quite heavy. It's that Friday. Shall we try and keep alive while we do? Let's do it. Talk to us on SpiceFM, KE on Twitter, text 40127. Let's keep things moving this Friday.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Okay.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
0719-012-600. Should the government lift this mandate on people wearing masks in public? City? Yes, no?
No, it doesn't require yes-no response because what will the government be lifting? People aren't wearing masks anyway.
Lifting that requirement ensures that no one can arrest you and you'll be taken to court and be slapped a penalty of 20,000.
You know, today, any random police officer and you're not wearing a mask can come to you and say, well,
they can.
Mask co-op. If you don't have it, you can be taken to court.
They can. But when was the last time you heard of people being arrested for not wearing masks?
I remember
You haven't heard?
Yeah, I remember being in a building. I was in a building last week. I had my mask on and I was coming out and I had taken it off because I needed to, I'd gone to the washroom and come out. And the lady at the reception said to me, make sure you put on your mask because if you go downstairs, those guys are there and you will be arrested. She told me clearly. I was like, wow, okay. I didn't even realize that was still a thing.
They're down there arresting people.
Yes.
Basically, that's what she said.
Yes. She said this to me and I
There's
said,
a
wow.
kamata going on.
Yeah.
It was a Friday, was it?
It was a Thursday.
It was a Thursday.
Yeah.
They started early.
End month?
It was last week.
Yes, end of month.
Valentine. So it's still there. People are being harassed, even if you're not taken all the way to court. Just the fact that you've been arrested and you've been threatened with court action, it's basically just shaking you down.
You know, the point you make is a valid one. I was actually being facetious. It is true. If it is a law, it has to be repealed. People need to know that you have a choice of wearing the mask, and if you don't, there'll be nothing punitive that will happen to you. Yes, that I understand. But the point I was trying to actually get at was this. When you consider the way we respond to laws in this country, okay, and the response is based on, well, should I say, certain pertinent issues. For instance, people, Dr. Gitai mentioned, people can't afford to buy these masks as you want. Right?
Yes.
The masks that people refer to as disposable. Other people wash them and reuse them. They even iron them. Okay?
Imagine.
Just to make sure that they're reusable. When you go to open markets and you go to, say, mashinani, as we call it, the rural areas, people do not wear masks. They have not been wearing masks for the longest time. However, what am I saying? I'm saying that this discussion about COVID presents us with an opportunity to look at certain things in perhaps a much colder and a more direct light than we have in the past. Because the positivity rate is low, as far as we're concerned, the problem has gone. It hasn't. Just because one doesn't hear of HIV, it doesn't mean it has gone. It hasn't. Just because you don't hear of TB very often doesn't mean it has vanished. It hasn't. The diseases that have been a problem for us, we hear of cancer right now more than we hear of any other disease. But the other diseases we previously spoke of haven't gone anywhere. The danger of COVID hasn't also gone. Now, when we message this idea of the mask, or when we revise the position of protection, the wording and the communication needs to be careful so that it is understood that this is what we are saying. Yes, the general public will interpret it as they see fit, but it has to be communicated effectively. But beyond that, this attitude that we Kenyans have of disregarding certain aspects of our laws, I think it's at the heart of the matter. Is it that we simply enjoy going against dictates that have been handed down for our protection? Or is it that we don't really have much of a choice?
Also, I mean, it's just a mix of, sometimes it's a mix of attitude.
Yes.
All right? This is a government that imposed a curfew and kept a curfew in place for 18 months.
Yes. And?
Night curfew. All right? Harassing people, stopping people from doing business at night, stopping night transport, stopping. And there was no justification. It's like they imposed a curfew and they moved on. And whenever they feel like they wake up one morning and they want to enforce it, they stop people on Thika Highway for an entire night just because, this is the same government that came up with the mandate on reducing the number of people who are allowed in public transport. And just stayed on for more than a year. And then one day they're like, okay.
It's like they forgot and then remembered.
It's there. It's the same thing with these masks.
But you see, Eric,
so you get to a point where you look at it and you're thinking, okay, look, come on. I'm also thinking straight. I am seeing I need to live my life. I am seeing, the positivity rate, the people around me who have COVID, who don't have COVID. So everybody is constantly balancing their risk. They understand the risk that they are exposing themselves to. So they make that decision. It's not that you're really ignoring the government. It's the government imposed, but the government is not even following up with conversations around it. Of telling you, okay, so this is what we said about masks. Let's now review. The positivity rate has dropped to 3%. We can now lift the mask, or we can lift the night curfew, and when it goes back to 5%, we shall reintroduce. It's like, there's COVID, there's curfew.
End of story.
Eric, the conversation and why I'm saying what I'm saying is this. There's something tragic about the way our leaders in the government go about performing their duties. How do you impose a curfew? How do you set COVID rules? And then the very people who are supposed to lead you go and break it in broad daylight with your rallies, with your meetings. What on earth do you think you are doing? I mean, you have laid waste to whatever else you had said or you had decreed. Can you then blame the public when they decide, following from the fact that we can actually attend rallies and you're in closer proximity to each other and the numbers are even greater?
Yeah.
Remember before the noise was made, public holidays and these national days, same thing was happening. And you're thinking, it is a national day. Surely. It's like the government made pronouncement, but they hadn't internalized it themselves. Yesterday I was having a conversation with someone who comes from a European country, and the thing that I found amazing, I asked them, in your country, what is the biggest scandal that you have had? Or currently? They said, currently, we have a problem with the Minister for Finance. I said, yes, what? So the Minister for Finance moved a coffee maker from one office in a ministry she was heading and moved with it to the new office she's heading. I said, repeat that again, please.
That's the scandal.
That's your what?
Say again.
Let me repeat it. Moved a coffee maker. You know these machines that you
Make
take
coffee.
yes, supposed very good, so that
Yes,
the
yes.
coffee is fresh and everything. They were in this ministry, then they moved to another one, they moved to the coffee. I said, is that all? I said, yeah, but there was another problem also that the minister had. I said, what was that? That the official car took her children to school. I said, what? He said, yeah, it's a problem. People are discussing it. I said, okay. That's the problem. He said, that's the problem. Now, I thought, okay, it's an intergalactic journey.
Wallahi.
Because it's very.
Have they dealt with all the other problems that now this one becomes a problem?
That is the big problem.
Yes.
The big problem is that
Don't have
I asked the question. He
coffee
said, no,
maker.
he said the thing is the public awareness about rules, regulations, and the law
very high.
is very, very high. And anyone in leadership is expected to uphold those rules more than anybody else. You are expected. And if you don't, the consequences are direct and immediate. I said, really? He said, yes. And they also understand it and they know it. Now, why I say it's an intergalactic journey is because even mentioning it, can you ask what are you talking about?
What's wrong with you? You said that the car dropped your children in school.
What
How many
are
times?
you talking about?
When people will use official car to move house, go on the weekend, every weekend, do it. What are you talking about? Campaign trail with official car.
Not official car, official dom. Meaning there's car and there's everything that goes with it. So now,
it's truly an intergalactic journey.
no, it is. It's like someone transported me from one particular planet to a completely different one. But what am I saying? I am saying that there's this constant gap that the leadership seems not to appreciate. And I say so because they seem to think that when you're in a position of what we call leadership, it doesn't behove you to actually conduct yourself in a manner that is aligned to what the Constitution says. It is for everybody else except you. And then they marvel and wonder why it is Kenyans seem to find it very, very easy to go against what the written dictates are. And they say, but why do you expect them to hold these standards and you don't? Why? How exactly do you think this leadership thing works? Is it a leadership where all you do is tell people what to do and then you do exactly what you want?
When Kenyans were first told stay at home, they stayed at home.
They most certainly did.
Even though there are many who are questioning, this is about money, this is about getting
But they
wild
still
bank cash,
stayed at
but
home.
They stayed at home.
Yes.
When they were told, okay, start wearing masks, they looked
wore
for
masks.
They bought masks. Masks were expensive.
They found everything that they could do to that could represent a mask, and they put it on.
And the government stayed. They moved on. The government forgot. In fact, until Dr. Getahi raised this question, I'm sure there are people in government who were like, because to them it just became part of. It just became.
They didn't even realize
it's our
that
fashion
maybe,
thing.
yeah.
Whenever you see a cabinet secretary or the president, he's wearing a mask. It's just become part of fashion. They do not consider whatever else is actually happening. That this is a daily cost because you're using these non-reusable masks. Those reusable masks are more expensive.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about people having to constantly keep buying. So I need to walk into a building. Oh, God, I forgot a mask. Buy a 50 bob. You buy what? So you have to have boxes of masks. It's costs. People are being arrested, being harassed. Costs. Just because these guys can afford to wear these very nicely colored masks with a flag on them, and it become a fashion statement when they go to the Dubai Expo. Doesn't mean that they forgot what it means.
And so now, introducing this conversation, and people are taken aback probably. Like,
Okay.
oh, hold on a minute. Why were we having these things instituted in the first place? Okay, so we can actually have them removed because we are seeing lower numbers. It doesn't even feature in the thinking that we brought about this thing for a purpose. Could it be time that it could be removed? It doesn't even show up in the thinking.
Much as the rule was there and the law was there, and punitive as it sounds, how many high-ranking officials did you hear? Have you heard of anybody being arrested for not wearing a mask? And many don't wear masks.
No.
Arrested where?
Look, it's like You are arresting someone and imposing a fine on someone who can't afford a mask. How do you think they're going to afford the fine?
There you go.
And this is constantly happening. So I personally agree with Dr. Itai. Let's have this conversation. Let's review the mask mandate. And even when it comes to vaccine, let's also think about how best to get the vaccine accessible. Just like he said, I mean, somebody is spending an entire day trying to eke out a living. And the public facility where the vaccine is available is only available for a couple of hours. And on weekdays.
Can you imagine?
And it's the hours, it's the hours when you're working.
You can't get there.
And some people who make a living in the manner that we actually describe, those are hours they cannot take leave from their work.
Does it appear to you that those things, which should be made a lot more easier for the citizens, are almost deliberately made difficult? And then they say, look, well, we've made it available. But then you say, hold on a minute. No, you haven't really. That I have to eke out a living for myself, as you're saying. But then you're putting this vaccine, for example, at the hours where I cannot leave my job. If I leave my job, I get fired.
And then you make it a mandate.
Or I go hungry if I leave my business.
Yeah.
But that's what tells you that how far removed the people in leadership are with the reality in the country.
They just choose to.
Saturday, Sunday ought to be the days when you open this thing up to the public because they have the time to actually go and get vaccinated.
Or do a night session from 5 to 10 p.m. Move the people that are there from 8 to 5 and have it at night.
When it matters to the leaders, they'll make it possible for you to do it. It matters to them that you vote. Voting day is a public holiday. By law.
By law.
Okay, let's talk about internet addiction for our children. This is defined as any online-related compulsive behavior which interferes with normal living and causes severe stress on family, on friends, on loved ones. Are your children addicted to the internet? There's what we're talking about is how to identify internet addiction, how to protect your child from the internet addiction. Make sure that they do it.
Make sure that your child sticks to their normal schedule, right? They should not skip meals or break regular bedtime due to excessive use of the internet. You find some kids are not even going outside to play, are not interacting with other people, not even doing their homework sometimes. Make sure they're going to bed on time. Use parental control tools. There are very many on the internet that you can use, making sure that they're, staying within the limits of what is age appropriate. Set a limit on the duration and time that your child can spend on online gaming and place the computer in a common area in the house so that you can keep an eye on your child's online gaming.
All right. So when it's about gaming and all, place it in somewhere where
we can see you.
It's all accessible.
Right.
I'm interested to know about parental control tools. That would then, so are you saying that within a certain time, parental control includes switching off the Wi-Fi?
That's one thing. Or there's another tool I can say really quickly right now, for example, that you can be connected to your child's device. And so what they're watching, you get a notification on your device.
That's on the content.
Yeah.
But how do you control their addiction to the internet?
Well, I get setting rules in your house. Absolutely necessary.
Okay. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. This is the Situation Room in Nairobi, in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri and Malindi, and also online, YouTube and Facebook. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is emergency response in Kwale County to strengthen the capacities of local communities to respond to the effects of drought risks. The Kenya Red Cross Secretary General Dr. Asha Mohammed said they are scaling up cash voucher systems and livestock offtake activities in the region. Mohammed noted that the humanitarian organization is undertaking a mitigation program targeting 1,000 households affected by the drought in Kwale, where each household will receive 5,467 shillings to cushion them from the effects of the ongoing drought. She said the drought mitigation program is targeting 1,500 families spread in Kinangwa and Lunga Lunga sub-counties. The High Court has extended orders stopping Mathare North National Government Constituency Development Fund from paying 8 companies that had been awarded various tenders. In the case, political activist Ezekiel Otieno moved to court and challenged the said tenders of allegations of corruption in the tendering process. Justice Hedwig Omudi directed that the matter be mentioned on February 28th of this year. The Mohammed Abdi, who was reinstated by the High Court as Wajir governor, now wants the National Treasury, Controller of Budget and the Central Bank of Kenya to temporarily halt disbursement of funds to the troubled county pending scrutiny of the handover reports and preliminary audit of various projects. Mahmoud was impeached on May 18th over abuse of office and misappropriation of funds. His position was immediately taken up by his deputy Ali Ahmed Mukhtar, who has vowed to challenge the latest ruling. Mohammed said the freeze should not, however, affect salaries to be paid during the period. And Kenya Revenue Authority customs officers have nabbed a money laundering suspect at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport while in possession of $2 million, approximately 238 million shillings, after arriving from Burundi. A statement issued by the Customs and Border Control Commissioner stated that the Kenyan was intercepted by officers after presenting conflicting information on the intended destination of the parcel during clearance. According to the report, the suspect originally stated that the parcel was destined for a private security company at their Kenyan offices. And a 36-year-old man has been sentenced to life imprisonment by the CIA High Court after he was found guilty of murdering his brother over a land dispute. Michael Onyango Awich, who appeared before CIA High Court Judge Lady Justice Rosaline Aburili, had been accused of murdering his brother Charles Odur Awich. The court heard that Odur, who worked as a night guard at Oseno Komolo Primary School in Komolo sub-location, went missing on the 11th of February 2020, only for his body to be recovered 10 days later. This is after the accused allegedly hired some goons who stormed the deceased's house at around 10 p.m. the night before he was reported missing. The Democratic Party is planning to field candidates for all electoral ties in all regions of the country. The DP National Management Committee said the party is gearing towards reviving its presence in all parts of Kenya. National Chairman Nesao Kioni, party leader Joseph Munyao, and other members of the National Committee said the party will take a new direction Sunday when they are expected to name Speaker of the National Assembly Justin Muthui as the presidential flag bearer. The officials speaking from the JB Muturi Center in Nairobi said Sunday will be the launch of a heated campaign for Muturi and other candidates expected to vie on DP tickets from every part of the country. Now, at least 11 pupils from Lake Victoria Primary School in Kisumu are nursing minor injuries after a saloon car rammed into their classroom. According to the school's head teacher Regan Omondi, the incident occurred when the learners were in class. The driver of the ill-fated vehicle is reported to have lost control. Later residents, however, claimed the school is sitting on riparian land and are now calling on the government to relocate it. The school, which is serving vulnerable learners drawn from the Dunga area of Kisumu Central Sub-County, is in a deplorable state. Internationally, and French President Emmanuel Macron has confirmed that France and Western countries involved in the French-led anti-terrorist operations in West Africa will begin to withdraw from Mali. The withdrawal will take between 4 to 6 months. France and allies will close down military bases in Gossi, Meneka and Gao and transfer soldiers stationed there to Niger. In a joint statement, the European and Canadian governments involved in the Operation Barkhane and Takuba task force deemed that the political, operational and legal conditions are no longer met to effectively continue the current military engagement in the fight against terrorism in Mali. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
There's some traffic on Raila Odinga Way today. We're looking at quite some of that feeding off of Langata Road. Gong Road also continuing. Uhuru Highway, please, folks, if you can avoid Uhuru Highway today, do so. Started really early and there's a lot of traffic in and outbound. Probably to use an alternative route out of the city to get to Mombasa Road if that is your expected destination. Sawa? Try. Okay, where else are we looking at traffic today? Coming into the CBD, right at Moranga Road, then towards the Globe Cinema overpass, something there. Thika Superhighway all the way through to Clayworks is jam-packed. And we're also looking at Kiambu Road following suit. Mombasa Road, a little bit here and there. Imara Daima is a clog up. North Airport Road and a little bit of North Airport Road, of Outer Ring has that issue today. Imara Daima inbound traffic is something else. How about we keep things sane? Talk to us. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Looks like it's going to be a crazy traffic day. Let's text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's 7 after 8
This is the
on the 18th
Situation
of
Room.
February. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Situation Room on Spice FM. Now also live on KTN Home and YouTube and Facebook. City, the proverb.
A leader in the community without a pot belly is a stingy man.
A leader in the community without a pot belly. Punctuation is important.
Pot belly
Wow.
being a sign of wealth and abundance.
Oh, Kwashioko.
Yes, but in that community, it was bordering on its opulence. It is a manifestation of plenty. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the girth itself is plenty. If it's protruding and it's a belly, it's already plenty. But nonetheless, it also signifies
That you have a little bit extra in your pocket.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And it also is not just pot belly. It's
No.
also in the garments you wear, in the shoes you wear, the headgear, the walking stick, the homestead you reside in. So it's everything around you that then elevates you to that position, that you clearly are a person of means and also a person who's generous.
That is very true.
Senior.
And the question that we're now asking, of course, when you think of in interpreting such a proverb is, what is a modern day pot belly?
VX.
Dubai.
It's big car.
Yes.
Helicopter. Which then tells you, if we look at it that way, if this has been the thinking in African society all along, it's no wonder that we cannot relate with what, for example, the Europeans are dealing with. You're just giving us the example of this friend of yours from a European country, and you ask them, what's their biggest scandal in the country today? And the biggest scandal in that country today is the finance minister moved from one office to another and carried the coffee making machine.
And also, in addition, that they confounded it by having the official vehicle take the children to school.
Yeah. I mean,
I was stunned.
That's very un-African to actually even consider that would be an issue.
I was stunned.
Here they are stunned that a minister can actually take the coffee maker away. You are stunned that something as insignificant as a coffee maker is causing all this national hullabaloo. Meanwhile, much more, because here, exactly, intergalactic journey, here, who even noticed that a coffee maker has disappeared?
Well, it's expected that you move with some of these furniture.
Because those are your things.
The next one comes, we buy new furniture for them. All right? That's and you're not taking it home. So you're just moving. This is office, public office. Next office, public office. Right? It's still public office. Surely.
You know, if you're going by that thinking, it reminds me of a colleague I once worked with. Because of water problems, we had decided that in the many places we worked in, we're going to harvest water.
Yes.
So to harvest water, you need a reservoir. So we bought tanks. But they were not the process of just making sure that the collection point, the passage of collection, etc., cleaning making sure that everything is in place. But we bought the tanks ahead of time. This particular individual figured, since he was putting up some building somewhere, and he realized he also needed a tank for that particular building, and these tanks were not being used. Yeah, and there were around 4 tanks. He thought, even if he takes one tank, it's not really going to interfere.
Put a dent in the project? No.
Yes, and used a work vehicle to transport this tank to his building.
Temporarily, as he organizes his finances to
when
buy
I finish,
tank.
I
And
can
then
return
I'll
it.
return your tank.
Or I'll even replace for you.
Yeah, that was the thinking.
Yeah.
And he did replace it when he was asked, where on earth did you take public property to? And that's the reason he gave. Said, no, it wasn't being used. And so I just thought I would just take it and I would replace it. So you sit someone down and tell, excuse me.
It doesn't quite work like that.
It doesn't quite work like that. All right? Or somebody who has public coffers available to them and has a personal problem and figures, let me just borrow this $500,000 to sort out this problem. Then when that other money I was expecting comes, that money is not for you to use the way you see fit.
But it's sitting there idle. And I have need now.
And I need it now.
Yeah,
and it is here.
And it's not going to be used tomorrow. In fact, this month it won't be used. It's just sitting there.
Yes.
And I can actually see it sitting there.
I can
and
use
I have
it.
access to it.
I'll return.
In
what's the
short,
problem?
The logic is let me put it to good use.
And there's no problem with this behavior. That's it. And there's no problem.
Now you see,
the problem is if you don't return. If you don't return the money now, surely.
Yeah.
But now, the thinking. There were rumors that we used to deal with that there are people who used to cook data. You didn't have proof?
We can give you proof. Which kind of proof do you want?
Yes. Now, the problem with cooked data is this. The person who cooks them at some point will forget that they cook data. For instance, you can find somebody with the same name, same biodata, but the details that you are collecting are different. So you ask, is it possible for 4 people to come from this particular area with the same name, same age, same gender?
Well, I would be a bit worried.
Same name and
Charles
same gender.
Muga, female.
Yes.
Would be a bit concerned.
Yes.
And people are cousins and they share names.
So
and cousins come from the same area. So it's
and they could have been born in the same year. Auntie 1,
possible.
Auntie 2, Auntie 3. It's possible, CT.
Now let me tell you, an audit was done about these things. You know how funding goes around and it goes to this organization, another organization, some of the smaller CBOs and what have you. It was found, people forget, and this is a Kenyan thing, that when you write your name, you normally ask, can we have your ID number? You just give your ID number and it's not a problem, isn't it? The audit that was done by the funders found that there were very many people who are employed in 3 or 4 organizations supposedly doing the same thing. But even more significantly, people who ran some of these CBOs were actually indicating that these people were permanent employees, yet their books indicated that they paid these people on a weekly basis. And they'd been doing this for years.
Oh, wow.
But the reason why people do this, I'm talking about carelessness. All this money was intended to ensure that certain health needs of communities are met. And people who are actually documenting false information about what it is that they're actually doing. It eventually caught up with them. And what it meant was that very many organizations got shut down.
You know, I'm thinking, and I'm just sitting here and I'm saying, wow, is it possible that we'll get to the place where you would have this national chagrin that somebody has used an official vehicle to drop their children in school. Because it seems as though the opposite of what we're dealing with now currently is so deeply entrenched. And you ask yourself, will we ever get to the point where somebody is asking you, how can you do something like that? And we consider actually removing you from office for something where you see it's very simple, but no, it's national funds and resources. The people you are answerable to request that information. We get to that point where it's not okay, for this grand...
It was actually okay because you would find in a time gone by, you see how you see these green number plated cars, blue number plate. They were not always that way. You always had a government of Kenya, GK number plate, and then others were private number plate. Given your position, you had the official car which had the government of GK number plate, and then you also had a private car allocated to you. Depending on how high up you are, there are individuals who were heads of certain institutions. You have something like 17 cars. Yes, there was a lorry allocated to you. In case you need to move things in this country. I know it sounds funny, but it's just the truth. Some 3 lorries are located to you, okay? A 4-wheel drive in case, depending on the size, and also saloon car. One intended specifically for your family to be taken, blah, 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 blah. Even one your spouse could use. Then a gentleman by the name of Simeon Nyachai came up and said, you know something? We don't know who, because all these, parastatals had private number plates. He came up and said, Apana, parastatal, green number plate or blue number plate. Okay, it was local authority, green number plate, and parastatals, blue. So now you see blue, you know. That was not there. It's called accountability. Now, why do you think people loved working for the government?
Because of the 17
The
cars.
freebies in government were immense.
It's nice.
And if I have 6 cars allocated to me, see, I can lend you one. I mean, what's the biggie? Eric wants, he's got a function too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a function.
He needs a lorry and a 4-wheel drive.
There's a wedding this weekend somewhere. It's okay.
I need to go.
Yeah, so. Yes.
Peleka
And
hour.
government per diem also on the weekend paid to these people who
Fuel.
work late. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, you look at an eventuality, which is what we're dealing with in the health sector. It is not a health sector problem. It's actually a national government problem. All we see, because we're talking about health, is how it manifests itself in the health sector. But if you look at other sector, you'll find it's the same thing. Somebody who is in charge of water in the country finds it not problematic at all to divert pipes that were intended for a certain region into a completely different region.
Yeah.
For their farm.
Yes. And have it completely irrigated. Sees no problem with it.
And they can justify that and say, you know what, I come from a place that has shortage of water.
And there's water here.
I am the director or PS or minister in charge of water, surely. What do you expect? How do I go back to my people and not show them my pot belly? They would not consider me a leader in the community.
Yes.
We sat here with an MP. For what constituency was this? Richard Onyonka.
Okay.
Is it Chache?
Chache.
Yeah, it's Chache.
Yes. One of the
Chache is close
Chaches.
to Kitutu Chache. And he told us when he was an assistant minister, made sure that their government bursaries go back to his constituency and make sure that some of the beneficiaries come from the constituency. This whole thing of looking at where is there greater need for bursaries for people to go to get studies abroad because there's been a short. No. Just go back to your area, allocate. Minister gets 5, assistant minister gets 5, PS gets 4, and then whoever. That's it.
Actually, it went even further than that. In the previous government, when we were in a one-party state, you could actually tell who was in charge of which ministry depending on the employment ratios. You'd find a preponderance of people coming from that particular region in that particular ministry.
Yep.
If they're in charge of water meter readers, you'd find a preponderance of the people who are water meter readers coming from that area.
Community.
If they were in charge of basic primary education, you're talking about the teacher training colleges, you're talking about the teachers. It's how people felt. Your pot belly was seen in how many people in your area you got employed.
Yes. So that's an African thing then.
It is.
Are we then saying if it's an African thing, then we should then forget about this whole Western constructs and Africanize our thinking, and Africanize our politics, and Africanize our leadership.
And have yourself help, or rather help yourself to national coffers?
No, you're not
do what
helping
you need
yourself.
to do.
You're helping your people.
Actually, but that's where.
But you see, just the example you've given, somebody works at the TSC, comes from a certain region. You see a higher percentage of people who are employed into the by the TSC
Come from that
come
region.
from that region. In the military,
Yes.
when the leadership
Yes.
of the military was from a certain eastern part of this country, how many people from the eastern part of the country joined the military?
They are
When
those
it
who-
went to the northeastern, how many people from the northeastern joined the military? When it went to North Rift, how many people from the North Rift joined the military?
Maybe it's not necessarily just an African thing. Trump had his children also when he was president.
You could argue it's a human thing, but you see,
Biden is in Ukraine. Where was his son?
So, you see, the thing that I think bedevils us sometimes in our decision-making process is we're not able to handle our hypocrisy well. So it starts bothering us. The county system of government that we have, in my opinion, was to help answer part of this issue. Meaning, it's money where you come from.
Right.
So you can employ as many of your people as you want. You have your money. And the projects that you feel close to your heart, the things you need to do, you can do. You have the opportunity to do it. And the beauty of it is that this particular system is what has brought to the fore not the tribal issues that people will think, no, but the human nature. Because what cuts across literally every county that we have, what is replicated is the way in which these funds have been mismanaged. It's replicated.
Why? Are you saying that the tab of self-control then disappears? Because, I mean, in my opinion, public funds, which would then be clearly for the greater good of the people, it should not be touched. But it seems as though it has become so normal and that it's almost become accepted that if you do not do it, there must be something wrong with you.
Actually, that seems to be the norm. The norm is it is expected of
you. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
And we're looking at the other spectrum of it now, where previously it was that, or the moral expectation is that you get in there and you do your job without mismanaging or misappropriating anything. But now the normal thing is that if you hadn't become more pot-bellied, as it were, then there's actually something wrong with you.
Actually, the consequences of building that pot belly in the modern way in which we go about it, the consequences, short, mid-term, and long-term, is something that either we do not want to look at or it's too far in the future for us to be concerned with, because our biggest concern is today. And if we really try, tomorrow. If we completely exert ourselves, it may be the day after tomorrow. But the immediacy of our needs seems to have taken not just center stage, but it's a central grip that doesn't seem to allow you to think beyond it. So even when it's pointed out that, you know something, this billion shillings we talk about being misappropriated, let's tell, as Eric like equals, what it equals to is not this number of schools, this number of hospitals,
Couple of hospitals,
this number of roads, this number of water projects, the things that you say you need. This is what it is equal to. But it is as water off a duck's back. The moment it lands, it goes away. So the pot belly remains.
Big one. Let's continue the conversation on, health. This is Healthy Fridays. So the NHIF has published these draft regulations, several draft regulations, which they are asking for public participation and public input on them. And the various draft regulations are, number one, there's a draft regulation on beneficiary identification regulations, NHIF contributions regulations, NHIF member registration regulations, empanelment and contracting regulations, and claims and benefits regulations. A controversial headline in the papers this morning, CT.
Yes, it is. In fact, if you look at the Business Daily, you will find it is the headline of headlines, right? Yani, right there.
The one.
Yes, this is how they have phrased it. They've said NHIF to stop cover for cancer in private clinics. Of all the things that are supposed to happen, they've chosen this aspect because it's not the only thing that's going to happen. It's the one thing that they pointed to. Cancer is a big issue. a very, very big issue. It's a problem. It's a disease whose treatment is extremely costly. And it's a disease whose treatment without the assistance of NHIF or some other means is virtually impossible. And one could argue, the detection of it is expensive. The process of ensuring it doesn't spread is expensive. And if all these things aren't taken care of, then it is most certainly a death sentence.
Indeed.
And a rather painful death sentence at that.
Please read that story, a couple of paragraphs.
I am going to do precisely that. The National Hospital Insurance Fund, I've got that one right, NHIF, will stop paying for treatment of chronic diseases such as cancer, diabetes, heart and kidney ailments in private hospitals if, and only if, Parliament approves changes aimed at reducing payouts. Paragraph 1. I now move to paragraph 2. Deep breath. Fresh regulations published by the state-backed insurer require it to cover patients with chronic illnesses in government hospitals like the overburdened KNH, Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi. A beneficiary with chronic illness shall, and I continue, access treatment for chronic illness from public health care providers only, says the new regulations that were published on Wednesday for public review pending approval by the members of Parliament. Lastly, as in what I'm reading lastly, there's a lot of it, okay? This sets up low-income patients and affected households for tough times, given the majority of them rely on the NHI for diagnosis, drugs, and hospital expenses.
In private hospitals?
Yes. You see, the expenses relating to drugs, treatment, etc., the public hospitals may be where you are supposed to go to, but it is where you are not likely to get what you need.
This is it. And this is my...
Let me read the actual regulation, okay, just for avoidance of doubt. And this is a regulation called the NHIF Claims and Benefits Regulations number for 2020. And it says, a beneficiary, this is clause 6, a beneficiary with chronic illness shall access treatment for chronic illness from public health care providers only. The beneficiary shall only access treatment for chronic illness if their contributions are up to date. Full stop when it comes to clause 6. A beneficiary shall only get treatment for chronic illnesses from public healthcare providers only, and only if they are contributors to NHIF. Now that is definitely going to be raising a number of issues. Are our public health facilities able to meet the needs of all chronic illness patients in the country? And what does that mean? What are we talking about? What's the reason behind this? Now, because this is a forum for public participation, we'll open up the phone lines for you to join in and give us your views on this particular one. Yesterday, we talked about some of the regulations and the requirements. Requirement number 1, everybody must be a contributor to NHIF as long as you're above 18, or you're not above 18, you're not somebody who is receiving support from the government. If you don't, 20,000 shillings penalty. And also, if you don't get access to public government services. Now, if you're a contributor, one of the clauses here is saying that anybody with chronic illness shall only receive treatment at public health facilities using NHIF. Do you say yes or no to this proposed regulation? 29 minutes after 8, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We are live on SpiceFM, KTN Home, YouTube, and Facebook. Time for a break. Let's be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I like listening to you guys. You're the default radio station in my car in the morning. Even the children listen to you guys.
I agree Parliament has failed this country. And I will say it again. We have not done what we should have done.
We know in this country
The Kenya prison sector is one of the most underfunded sector.
The way it is being done and the way we're calling it Huduma Number the Msema Kweli is because all records will be there. You know, there are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes. Anything that the president does that is not in accord with the constitution is an illegal act. You know, he shouldn't be doing it and he shouldn't be sitting here and trying to sort of guise it up.
I totally believe live transmission of results and
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Mostly cloudy, some sun in Nairobi today, 20 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 15. It's sunny at 18. In Nakuru, highs of 28. 28 will also be the high in a partly sunny Nyeri. And we'll see partly sunny conditions in Eldoret at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 12. Mombasa's partly sunny at 28, highs of 33 today. And we'll see highs of 32 in a partly sunny Malindi at 27. It's 22 degrees and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's sunny at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 14. The rain showers continue in Kampala, highs of 27, and it's still raining in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's mostly clear in Lagos at 26, highs of 34 and lows of 26, while it's cloudy in Johannesburg this morning at 17, we'll see highs of 23. 31 will be the high in a rainy Kinshasa, currently at 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Still continues on Uhuru Highway, getting into the city in and outbound traffic today. And it's called what? It's called Raila Odinga Way as you're heading towards Gong Road and then into the city. It's actually quite packed right now. Coming in from Mombasa Road, packed. Eric has done the action with his hands to let you know really how packed it is this morning. Problems as you're trying to get into Nairobi today. Also on the other side of the city, if you're coming in from the Thika Superhighway, it's gotten a little bit better. But as you get to the Utali Drift, that holds up just some. And Kiambu Road, free and clear, at least for now. 8:32, not bad. Out of traffic hour from there. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that because it's very easy to clog up once again. Let us know what's going on, guys, and let's try to be as careful as possible as it's likely to get a little bit cray-cray. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 27 minutes to 9. This is the Situation Room. We're live on Spice FM, YouTube, Facebook, and KTN Home. So NHIF is a new creature now with the enactment of the NHIF Amended Act of 2022. And to bring that act to life and so give NHIF the new life that it seeks to have, there are some draft regulations that have been published by the Cabinet Secretary for Health in conjunction with the board of NHIF that talks about very many things that now will happen with the new NHIF. One of those is what we are discussing this morning, and it's subject to public participation, which is what we want to have on the show today. So NHIF says that if you are an NHIF member and you're then a beneficiary with chronic illness, you will not access treatment for chronic illness from public healthcare providers or from private healthcare providers. Beneficiary with chronic illness shall access treatment for chronic illness from public healthcare providers only. Basically, those who've been receiving treatment for chronic here includes what city again?
Let me just... Cancer. Diabetes. Renal problems.
Renal kidneys.
Okay. Now, this is the problem. Even from the earlier conversations that we had today with Dr. Githinji, decisions must be fueled by information. This is relevant data that you get. And then thereafter, you say, okay, this is what we are going to do based on this information. N'est-ce pas?
Yes.
Now, it would, and because of things like this, it would seem as though in a bid to make sure that what you wanted to do has come through, you just say these things as though you're not aware of the situation on the ground. Let's just take cancer alone. Renal issues are a whole other ball game here. When we're looking at diabetes, all right, maybe not as severe as cancer and renal issues, right?
But chronic.
But chronic nonetheless. What has been the cry of people who go to these public facilities to get their treatment? That even at some point you're told you're going to get your chemo and you're told we do not have the requisite medicine, please go and purchase somewhere else. These are things that are happening in public medical facilities today.
Yep.
Now, is the infrastructure available to allow for this regulation that you have set in place?
No.
So you're telling people, okay, chronic diseases with your NHIF card, you cannot go to a private facility, which is where, unfortunately or fortunately, you can access these services when you need them. With your NHIF card, you're saying you must go to a public facility. It's okay, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to boost the public facilities. But is the infrastructure available? Are the services available? If the answer is no, such a regulation is only begging. It's basically on its knees begging, please come and sue us. That's what it is. Because you cannot force me for something that you're telling me is a right for everybody to access. Then you're going to corral me into a particular space. You best make sure that that space has everything I need to be able to get it done. If it does not, you have no business making that regulation. Sorry.
On Tuesday, we hosted Sydney Chahonyo here in the Situation Room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sydney is the board chair of Hope for Cancer Kids, an organization that looks and seeks to support families that have children who are undergoing treatment for cancer. What did Sydney tell us when it comes to availability of radiotherapy equipment in the country? KNH
is the only one.
And now Moy Teaching and Referral in Eldoret, and KU Teaching Research and Referral in KU, and the new one that was launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta, which a doctor here said that one, by the time it actually becomes operational, give it some time.
Still not operational.
And so the majority of radiotherapy is in public and private.
And you
health
must remember that
facilities.
radiotherapy is a complementary treatment to chemotherapy for cancer patients, that you need both of them. You cannot say you're on chemo and then you have not done the radiotherapy at the same time. Look at it now. Public facilities, only 4 radiotherapy centers. And even those 4, one of them is not functional. What are we talking about here? And that's why I'm saying, if you cannot guarantee that any public facility where you're going to seek this treatment does not have everything that you need, you have no business making this regulation. I'm sorry. It's putting the cart before the horse. You're saying, yeah, okay, you can't go to a private facility to get this done. Have you made sure that the public facilities has everything that you need? What are you doing? You're sending people back into this frustrating thing where they're going to go line up. I'm not saying line up for hours. We've seen the lists. We know that anybody who now needs to get on cancer treatment today, February 18th, 2022, is going to have to wait for at least 6 months to be able to get it in a public facility today.
You know what I find contradictory, though, is you are expanding the base of contributors to this particular fund, and then you want to reduce the services that are available. And yet, with the increase of the number of people who are members, it means you are collecting more money.
Yep.
And if you look at the raft of suggestions, I'm calling them suggestions that have been made, who should pay more, who should pay less, etc., it's supposed to balance this equation so that the end product is you as that particular institution having more money to work with. Okay? But the moment you have a situation where there are more questions to what you're proposing than there are answers, then you can't overemphasize the dire situation that we are actually facing.
On the back of that,
yes,
employers have decided you want to raise what employees have to pay. Absolutely not. They've rejected the plan to raise NHIF rates, which is just in the same conversation. Uproar is what it's been called, has greeted proposals by the NHIF to deduct higher contributions from employees. The move is radical and against standard practice, according to the Federation of Kenya Employers Executive Director Jacqueline Mugo. As the custodians of employees in the country, we were never consulted. Yet another problem. Eric, yesterday when I was telling you this thing is just begging injunction, did you remember what I said? We were not consulted. Public participation was not carried out. Then here we are. We have an issue with the draft. NHIF is a law unto themselves, and this was uncalled for. The changes are meant to boost UHC, but for the changes to work, Ms. Mugo said, NHIF needs to step back and examine whether this is in the right direction to take.
Don't you find it peculiar that we seem to constantly put the cart before the horse in some of these matters? I say this maybe tongue-in-cheek because it is likely that I don't understand fully what is going on. But here you are talking about universal healthcare. Because really, this is the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It is this conversation that has lent itself to people saying, okay, if this is what you're going to do, then ensuring that everyone in this country who's an adult pays for NHIF makes sense. Because you need a bigger pool of people. The same conversation, you are then saying you are going to reduce the services and reduce the capacity. See, when we talk of private hospitals, the thinking is that you think of these huge, swanky private hospitals. A local clinic run individually as someone's business, that is a private hospital.
Yes, it is.
It's a private health facility.
Yes, it is.
Now, what if that is what is available in your neck of the woods?
You've basically shut it down. You basically said, with your NHIF card, if this is in the vicinity of your community, you cannot go there with your NHIF card if you need to access services for 1, 2, 3.
You know, the vast majority of these private health facilities are not big hospitals. They are small. The vast majority. Remember, when we opened up healthcare services and we enabled the licensing of clinical officers and nurses to be able to open up health facilities and care for their patients, what you did was you made it possible to provide healthcare service at very many, very basic levels of society and community. They are private institutions. So unless they're going to come up and tell us yet again that we are categorizing the private hospitals or facilities where you can use NHIF, why do they say we're putting the cart before the horse? Remember the discussion we had yesterday about Huduma number and how you get people registered. You cajole, you coerce, but you get them. You get 35 million.
37.
Sorry, I missed 2 million.
Yes.
I was giving a discount, family and friends discount, but it's 37. Okay? Good number. And then you were told, very good. Now, can you just stop and now backtrack and get your ducks in a row? The things that you ought to have done before you did this are A, B, C, D. Do them. And we're told categorically by the person in charge that they're now on the 4th attempt. Now, here we have NHIF who seem to be doing the same thing. NHIF, oddly enough, has been operational, and NHIF is a good thing. Anyone who has ever been unwell knows that NHIF has worked for the longest time. You then want to revamp it, turbocharge it, and ensure that you expand its reach. Okay. While at the same time, you expand its financial base. But at the same time, what do? You then start saying, we are also going to limit where you can use them. And so, not everyone. Remember, they talk about chronic diseases. And if you look at what NHIF have done, they haven't actually defined. We are going by definitions that have been given by other health authorities.
It could be more, is what you're saying.
All I'm saying is there is a lot that ought to have been done and needs to have been done with this particular discussion so that we have clarity when we're talking about this matter of NHIF. But with every passing day, something else comes up. You realize, but we're not clear about this. We are not certain about this. You can't really go about being uncertain about health matters. Not really. When a pronouncement is made, there needs to be accompanying definitions and clarity so that people know exactly what it is they're dealing with. That discussion that they had with the private hospitals, we had Dr. Luen here, that hasn't been clarified.
You know, in principle, by the way, I'm okay with saying let's try as much as possible to make sure that many of these services are offered at public. Because offering this support at public health facilities also means that it's at manageable costs.
Yes.
And then also means that NHIF is then able to actually meet, instead of saying only 22 rounds of chemo or radio, then you can actually say the full complement, whatever the experts say. If they say that you need 33 rounds, go for the full 33 rounds, NHIF is able to pay. Public means manage.
Yes.
This brings me back to what I have a problem with the national rollout of universal health coverage as launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta. It is focusing so much on NHIF and putting little to no effort on healthcare facilities and provision in the country. If we were saying that among the things that the conversations that are happening right now is, yes, we know that there is a program and a plan looking at healthcare financing, the financing of the health sector in the country. And there's a strategy for the next 10 years. Where shall we be getting our money? If we were saying that in tandem with this, we are also putting in money to increase the number of facilities in the country that are able to offer support for these chronic illnesses. And we have raised them from 5 to 50. Proven in the last 1 year. Or there's a plan to raise them from 5 to 50 by the end of the year, then it's okay. This regulation can pass. But short of that, short of anything that shows us that actually there's a plan that if you need dialysis and you walk into a public health facility, you'll be able to get dialysis.
On the money, Eric, and that's it.
If you have chronic illness, like you have cancer and you need chemotherapy, go to any public health facility, you will get. For radiotherapy, you will get in the level 5s. Level 4s and 5s across the country and 6s. If that was the case, yes, then this regulation makes sense. Short of that, this is just nonsense.
It is. And that's the thing that
it's just a piece of
that's
paper.
what I'm saying, that I actually do agree that the public health system ought to be boosted and that you must, if we're looking at a robust public health system, just like we would be looking for in a robust public education system, that what you need to do is then make sure that as many people access this system as possible. Now, what does it take to do that? That you need to have facilities countrywide whereby the resources are available. If you don't do that, then you might as well be taking that piece of paper and tossing it out the window. It doesn't mean anything. You can say it and it looks wonderful on paper, but if I walk into a hospital in Taita Taveta and I cannot get treatment on my NHIF card at a public facility, then this is nonsense. It doesn't make sense. And that's why I keep asking, what is fueling these decisions to come at these regulations? It would appear as though inadequate information is being used. You're ignoring the situation on the ground and trying to force a round peg in a square hole. That is what it looks like is happening right here. Because you don't need to be told the inadequacies in the public health system today in terms of resources. Take a look anywhere and you can see what stories are we being told. Visit a few of them every now and then. You know the situation, but here you are trying to change it by force. You can't do that. And that's why I say I agree 100% that the public health sector must be your primary source of delivery of health services in the country. It must be. But if you have not made the adequate provision for that to happen, then you have no business making a regulation about where people can go. You don't. Simple as that.
This burden being placed on NHIF is unfortunate. It really is unfortunate because with the push for UHC, the conversation seems to be suggesting or stating or demanding that suddenly, abracadabra, NHIF is supposed to carry the burden of all these issues that we keep discussing regarding the health sector. And yet the complementary services and structures that ought to complement NHIF, we find there is more conversation about those things than there are actually structures being put in place to ensure that the health services that NHI is supposed to help support is actually available. And the reason why the private sector keeps coming in is because they have those services available. And that's why people go to them. So unless there's a complementary, not conversation, there's a complementary activity that demonstrates with clarity that this anomaly is being rectified and that we are actually seeing a change in the public health sector.
I think we also need to disabuse this notion and saying, well, the only way to get public health facilities to improve, like Kenny Kenya is saying, is by making people use them, which is all right. But do you remember what happened when there was 100% transition education, for example? and everybody and their uncle was pushed into schools. What happened? Overcrowding. We're not even sure about how we're going to get. And say, let's go limping. No, let's not go limping. How about we actually walk upright with these things having been done? So when you're making these declarations, how about you make sure that packing people into the public health sector when you have inadequacies is not the way to improve the sector. And I think we need to run away from that, because then we'll get back to that situation where we'll say, well, at least there's a Maram road. No, when you can have a working road with all the amenities.
I think, City, you hit it on the head right there. When you said it's unfortunate that the NHIF is being burdened with some problems that should not even be their problem. This is a Ministry of Health trying to run away and divert us from its own failures and pointing us to NHIF. Because now when you start complaining about this conversation like we're having today, we are training our guns on NHIF.
Yes.
And saying, why isn't NHIF going to pay for us in private facilities? Why only public facilities? Blah, 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 blah. We should be asking that question to the Ministry of Health. Muthui Kagwe should be the one who's answering actually this question. Because, yes, NHIF will pay, and NHIF will look at what's the best in the best interest of the country. Long term, in the best interest of the country is let this money go into the public health facilities so that it improves the public health facilities. But is there a plan and a program and a strategy at the ministry headquarters that shows how we are going to improve our health facilities across the country? NHIF is only a purchaser, strategic purchaser of health services. It's just purchasing.
Yes.
The provider is the facilities. The provider is at policy level, national government, at implementation level, county governments. Oparanya with his 8 billion shilling monstrosity of a structure that he can't complete. Dado Godana in Tana River, 38 million shillings received to put up an ICU facility, and has not even put up a ward. Right? All these counties that we're talking about that are not able to offer these services, what exactly are they doing? Our focus is being shifted from that to NHIF.
Sure. Look, and here, so you're asking somebody else to do the job that you should have done. Yes. Initially. But remember, from the minute we heard about UHC, what were we told? The NHIF will be the vehicle through which UHC will be delivered. But there are certain inadequacies there. And you know what would have been prudent for NHIF to actually also say, hold on a minute, guys.
We don't build hospitals.
We don't build hospitals. We don't provide medicine. We don't do that. We are a fund through which insurance is provided, right? That arm we say we take responsibility for. But all these other things that now people are looking at us and saying it doesn't exist, it's not within our purview. It's not us. But here we are saying, okay, we're just going to kind of go along with it because we've been touted as the vehicle through which this will be delivered. So now let's just go ahead. No. To be able to stand up and say, we cannot do this because it is not our job. But we're still just rolling with the punches because it sounds like the right thing to do. And we're going to go limping where we should be standing upright and walking.
This thing will fail. And you'll see changes at NHIF. You'll see the board of NHIF being fired.
Disbanded.
We'll be looking back and saying, who's the chairman of NHIF? This man ran public health and insurance scheme sometime. Fire him. He couldn't manage that one. He can't manage this one. This is what we're going to do in coming months. Sure. Who is the CEO? Fire that guy. We will be saying that NHIF is failing, is limping. UHC is failing and limping because of NHIF, yet it's not NHIF.
Meanwhile, they were given a job that is not theirs.
Yes.
It's not their job.
And do you see the vigor and energy?
They will be collecting the money, yes. They'll collect the money, they'll have all these people, okay, fine. So the government will help them to force everybody to become a member, fine. Then they'll have the money, fine. You have paid, you are expecting services. You go to facilities, you're not getting services. Backlash from the public, backlash goes up all the way. We'll disband the board of NHIF, we'll fire Dr. Kamunyo, the CEO of NHIF, and we'll say those ones need to go, we need to do something else. But the Minister for Health, the PS for Health, the Director General of Health, the Directors of Medical Services for Health and Provision and the others, they'll be sitting pretty at Mafia House.
Meanwhile, it is
for
their
having done
responsibility.
nothing.
Meanwhile, it is their responsibility. And let me tell you something. These NHIF regulations, it would appear as though they've come from NHIF. But we must be very careful to note that the regulations are part and parcel from the ministry. Ministry is involved in all of this. So you sit and ask yourself the question, okay, you guys are making these regulations. And you know very well that the facilities, in some cases, are non-existent or at best inadequate. But you're still pushing for this regulation. So you can do the exact same thing that Eric's talking about later. Point fingers and say, well, you know, you guys were not able to deliver on this thing. Get rid of them and bring in other people then who can do the job. Meanwhile, you know where the failing is, at your doorstep. It is you. It is you. How do you say, get things done in a certain way and you know you've not made the provision to do it? And it is your responsibility. I beg you.
So we are talking about NHIF regulations that have been published by the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Senator Muthui, and they are available on the NHIF website. Because it's a period for public participation, this is a time to actually look at them. NHIF.or.ke. On the homepage, you will find NHIF saying, we have published the regulations. Please give your feedback, and they even have a schedule of where you can give the feedback until the, what date of March? Until 7th of March 2021. There are 5 regulations: NHIF Beneficiary Identification Regulation, NHIF Contributions Regulations, NHIF Member Registration Regulations, NHIF Empanelment and Contracting Regulations, and the one we're talking about this morning, NHIF Claims and Benefits Regulations. Has various ways in which, you're talking about claims and benefits. This one says that a beneficiary who has chronic illness shall only receive treatment for chronic illness at public hospitals. So we are saying all the people who are undergoing cancer treatment across the country, some in public, others in private facilities, and NHIF is paying. All those who are going through dialysis across the country, some in public, some in private, NHIF is paying. Going forward, should these regulations actually be adopted, only public facilities. This is government hospitals. Are government hospitals capable of actually handling this entire weight? Are they? Or is this just shooting ourselves in the foot and saying we are trying to heal ourselves? Healing what? We'll open up the phone lines for you to join the conversation at 9 a.m. on SpiceFM, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, Kisumu, 102.5. 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret, 96.7. Nyeri, 90.9, and Malindi is 97.7. We've been live on KTN Home for the last 50 or so minutes. Time for us to say goodbye to that audience, but you can switch over to SpiceFM, where we'll open up the phone lines shortly to have this conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So the conversation continues right here, about 1.5 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll open up the phone line 0719-012-600. It's a period for public participation on this. Do you agree with the regulations that have been drafted and published by the Ministry of Health, NHIF regulations that says anybody who is a beneficiary of NHIF and has chronic illness shall only receive treatment at public health facilities? That's at government hospitals, no more private. Is this the way to go, or is it not? Do you agree with that? Also, there's the other regulation that says if you are not a member of NHIF, you will face a penalty of 20,000 shillings. Also, if you're not a member of NHIF and you seek government services, you will not receive government services. This is basically saying NHIF now becomes a compulsory membership. And then there's what the employers are complaining about. There's now a graduated scale and a different way in which NHIF contributions shall be made. And it's rising. And employers are saying, we have not been consulted. Let's hear from you after this break, after we hear the news. And Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, it's Eric Latiff, CT Muga, and Ndu Okoh. Today is Healthy Fridays, where we discuss matters pertaining to healthcare in the country. It's now 9 a.m.
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Osato. President Kenyatta is expected to co-chair a roundtable session on agriculture and sustainable development today at the African European Union Summit in Brussels, Belgium. The head of state has continued to call for the enhanced financing for the interventions geared towards combating climate change. The president urged leaders attending the summit to prioritize climate financing to avert a climate crisis. He warned that the effects of climate change, unless checked, could undermine achievement of global development targets, including the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The National Council of Churches of Kenya has called on President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy Dr. William Ruto to bury their political differences. The NCCK chairperson Trans Nzoia County, Agri Olumola, said the interaction between the two leaders and the silence from the religious leaders added to the political tensions with each passing day. Olumola has called on the National Cohesion and Integration Commission to take action against some politicians who make statements that could disrupt peace. Sentiments shared by Kitale Town Archdeacon of the Anglican Church of St. Luke's Mesha Kosgei and Deputy Imam of Pangani Mosque in Kitale, Mohammed Diko. This as the DPP has revealed that 50 politicians are lined up for prosecution on incitement ahead of the August 9th general election. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, says his team is putting together evidence to present solid cases against the involved, urging the media to help present any evidence they might be having on hate mongers. The DPP put on notice politicians spewing hate during the electioneering period, saying that his office is currently handling over 50 cases related to political incitement, terming lack of adequate evidence as one of the impediments to speedy prosecution. The Meru Governor Kiraitu Murungi-led Devolution Empowerment Party Mombasa has announced it is now ready to join into a pre-election pact before forming a coalition to negotiate on behalf of Mount Kenya East region. The party, through its chairperson, former Embu Senator Lenny Kivuti, noted that they are set to join the winning coalition in the upcoming 2022 general polls and be part of the next government. While receiving former PS Lillian Mbogo to the party, who is eyeing the Embu senatorial seat, the party revealed the options for them is to enter into a pre-election pact between the William Ruto-led Kenya Kwanza Alliance or Raila Odinga's-led Azimio La Umoja. And the Democratic Party is planning to field candidates for all electoral tiers in all regions of the country. The DP National Management Committee said the party is gearing towards reviving its presence in all parts of Kenya. National Chairperson Esau Kioni, Party Leader Joseph Munyao, and other members of the National Committee said the party will take a new direction Sunday when they are expected to name Speaker of the National Assembly Justin Muthui as the presidential flag bearer. The officials speaking from the JB Muthui Center in Nairobi said Sunday will be the launch of a heated campaign for Muthui and other candidates expected to vie on DP tickets from every part of the country. And the Kenya Revenue Authority customs officers have nabbed a money laundering suspect at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport while in possession of $2 million, approximately 238 million shillings, after arriving from Burundi. A statement issued by the Customs and Border Control Commissioner stated that the Kenyan was intercepted by officers after presenting conflicting information on the intended destination of the parcel during clearance. According to the report, the suspect originally stated that the parcel was destined for a private security company at their Kenyan offices. And a job advert to recruit 30 female train drivers in Saudi Arabia has attracted 28,000 applicants, highlighting the scale of pent-up demand as the conservative kingdom opens up more opportunities to women. Spanish railway operator Renfe said an online assessment of academic background and English language skills had helped it to reduce the number of candidates by around a half, and it would work through the rest by mid-March. The 30 selected women will drive bullet trains between the cities of Mecca and Medina after a year of paid training. And the United States step up warnings of an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine despite Moscow's continued denials and announcements of troop withdrawals from near the border. Adding to the already fierce tensions, Ukraine and Moscow-backed separatists traded accusations of intensifying shell fire across their front line, with Western officials saying Moscow was looking to create a pretext for an invasion. The threat of an invasion is very high because they have not moved any of their troops out. This is Newswire, Dennis Aseto.
Uhuru Highway, getting into the city this morning, is very, very tight. Traffic going through to the CBD. Raila Odinga Way taking that hit from Langata Road today. Ngong Road not looking too bad until you're getting towards Community. In the eastern part of the city, traffic here and there. Outer Ring posed a problem earlier, but that's all eased out. Okay, Jogger Road, still a problem here and there. Thika Superhighway, much better now. At the Pangani underpass is where you'll see some issues. Kiambu Road still doing that thing this morning. We're out of traffic hour quite early. We'll keep an eye on things. At 9:30, let's take a look once again. Okay? All right. Talk SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way
7
to start
after
your
9.
day.
How you doing? Thank you for keeping it locked on Spice FM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live also on YouTube and Facebook, and CT has the proverb.
Indeed, I do. A leader in the community without a pot belly is a stingy man.
A leader in a community without a pot belly. It is the leader without a pot belly, not the community. Leader in a community without a pot belly is
Stingy man.
Because pot belly is considered communal property.
Bas. It is, sindio.
all of
It
our
is
stomach.
communal, sindio. Property, sindio. Let's hear from you now. We open up the phone line 0719-012-600. New draft regulations published by the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Dr. Muthui Kagwe, on matters of NHIF, the new NHIF Act. So this particular one that we're discussing today says that any beneficiary of NHIF that is suffering from chronic illness will only receive treatment for chronic illness at public facilities. We are talking about cancer patients, HBP, we're talking about diabetes, you're talking about renal diseases, say kidney failure, and you require dialysis. You shall only go to government hospitals. Currently, there are very many, in their hundreds of people who are going to private facilities for these services. We know the facilities. People are going for chemotherapy, radiotherapy in private health facilities, and NHIF is paying. But now NHIF is saying, in these regulations, no, we shall only go this one route going forward. What do you think? 0719-012-600. Some comments on social media.
Quite some. Winnie says, the NHIF reform package follows the basic strategy that proposes the unacceptable to pass other regulations in the package that you wouldn't have accepted. While we make noise on the unacceptable, use public hospitals only, other regulations like making NHIF compulsory will pass. Abdi Nasir says, this is another laughable one from NHIF, a moribund outfit intentionally mismanaged by government to line pockets of a few individuals. NHIF is becoming another avenue of corruption. Becoming? Okay. Public health facilities in Kenya, according to Tomas, don't have the capacity to handle the rising cancer prevalence in the country. With more cash expected due to introduction of UHC, more health facilities need to be brought on board to offer chronic NCD services across the divide and not the contrary. I agree with that. Kenny had said before, I concur with NHIF Kenya here. How should we improve our public hospitals is the question. Julia, I think the devil is using NHIF to disenfranchise ordinary Kenyans. Those behind these regulations are being instruments of the devil.
Let's go to the phone lines. Thomas in Nairobi, good morning.
Hello, morning.
Good morning.
Now, a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to remember what the Constitution talks about. Who is supposed to do what where.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the national government is supposed to deal with policy and level 6 hospitals.
Mm.
And then at the same time, the county government are supposed to deal with the level 5, 4, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the gap, the facilities that are supposed to be managed by the county government. And the question then should be, was it a good idea to devolve these facilities to the county government? Because every so often we see this mismatch between the kind of services that we require, the resources that are available, and also the distribution of the same facilities, manpower, and so on and so forth. So it's the same kind of discussion that's going on here. Of course, under ordinary circumstances, it would be very, very good if UHC is offered through the public health facility. But then at the moment as it is, we see there is a huge gap. But we are the same ones who wrote it into law that the national government has particular responsibilities in terms of healthcare, and the county government in terms of healthcare. So what we should be asking is, Oparanya, what happened to your facility? And those are the questions that Kenyans should be asking.
In the meantime, Thomas,
yes,
the proposal by NHIF is that chronic illness patients should only go to public.
Well,
so should we say yes to this and say, okay, we say yes to this, but we also ask other questions, or should we say no to this?
It's something I agree with. And then at the same time, we ensure that the kind of funding that is supposed to be available for county public health facilities is available. And if there is any mismatch between the kind of services that ought to be delivered, then that is dealt with from that perspective. But at this point in time, in order to grow the kind of health system that we want to attain, it would be a good idea to have the services offered at the public health facility.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your call, Thomas.
Okay, well.
0719-012-600, that's 0719-012-600. Do you support a proposal by NHIF that beneficiaries will only seek chronic illness treatment at public hospitals? Do you support that proposal by NHIF, which is contained in the NHIF regulations, draft regulations? Patrick in Vihiga, hello.
Yes, how are you?
We are fine, thanks. How are you, Patrick?
I'm okay.
Good to hear.
I think my response to your question is no. Because in this country, those at the helm don't take things seriously. And that the freedom of choice should be respected at all levels. Because when one becomes sick, it's not an entertainment. It's a serious problem.
That's true.
At the same time, I have a rejoinder. From time immemorial, NHIF has been compulsory. Immediately one gets employment, especially in the public sector.
Yes.
That's one of the deductions that is made to the fund. What about someone who has worked for 20, 25 years or 30 years, and then he retires, fortunately having not visited any hospital, thanks to God's providence. Is this person therefore liable for any token of appreciation, or it goes like that? And can the fund provide data for those people who have worked for so long have retired or have visited the service, but they never visited an hospital.
So basically, just in general, any contributor who goes X number of years without making a claim,
yes,
should get something in return.
And
maybe
he's paid, right?
Yeah, you've been contributing for the last 10 years.
Because immediately you retire, you become a member by dormant. Unless maybe you start paying monthly. But you see, sometimes people retire and they take too long to get their benefits.
Yeah.
So in the period between retirement and the time the person gets these benefits, he is not a member, practically, because he's not contributing anything.
Yep.
So in case he falls sick, then he is at liberty of the community perhaps to contribute to see him get treatment.
Okay.
But NHIF will not honor you. Will not honor your claim.
New angle to the debate. Thank you. I think we should have those ones as we continue having conversations about health.
Yes.
Asante sana, Patrick.
Good day.
You too. Zachary Nakuru, hello.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, people.
Morning.
Hope everyone is okay there, including our Morim Andrew.
Morning, Zachary.
Oh, thank you, Morim. I'm fine, thank you. You know, it's Friday and I feel like flying. Flying. I can fly. I believe I can fly.
Hey, are the Warembos lined up for the weekend?
Of course, I have to see a number of them. Although I'm coming up with what we call costing, yeah. A lot of measures to actually.
Zachary, live within your means.
But I assured the elders that I will start up for the collateral damages that may occur in the process of interacting with these people. Yeah.
Okay.
And they were happy. They were happy actually. So this is my take. Anything that is forced down at the throat of citizens by government, it has a little motive or has got something fishy there, And I don't know why some people are so much killing the spirit of entrepreneurship in our country. I don't know what they start to benefit. Because this is the case with Eric, yeah? And the other panelists there do, and our respected Barimandru, yeah? There are public schools and private schools. If Zachary feels that, I'm going to take my kid to the private school that I can afford, yeah? That is my funeral. That's my business, yeah? The same case should happen to health. If I feel that I want to go and queue in a public hospital, and because of 1, 2, 3 reasons which I have, and I'm convinced that is where I'm going to get good services, I should be ready to do so. If I feel I want to go to a private hospital where they've got even a presidential suite, and I can afford to pay that, actually I should be ready to go there. Who is this killing the spirit of entrepreneurship? Who is this forcing, telling you that if you don't have this card, you are not going to get the government services? This is dictatorship. Somebody has got anything that is forced down the throat of citizens has got some fishy, whatever hidden there. And this is what
Zachary, can I ask you a question, please? Huh?
Please, Malin.
What you say has lends itself to some truth and can even be supported by evidence. But however, are you saying that it's universally true that when governments force things upon their citizens that is necessarily negative? Taxes are forced upon you. You're not given a choice to pay tax.
Okay.
All right. Certain things within government are mandatory. It's not as though somebody is asking your opinion whether you should have an ID card. When you get to a certain age, you must have an ID card. Must. If you want to drive a car, no one is asking your opinion whether you think you should have a driving license or not. You must have a driving license. And internationally, if you hope to travel outside the boundaries of your country, you must have a passport. Must. So not everything that is mandatory is of necessity negative. And not every decision has ulterior motives.
Can I answer you briefly?
Yes, please.
Something like a national ID card defines me as a citizen of Kenya. it is good that I have it. But there are some things that are optional. I don't have to be forced to go to a public hospital. But it is a must that when I get sick, I must be attended by a trained person, personnel, yeah? The choice of who is now going to treat me is, and I show evidence that I got sick, I had some cholera. I was attended to by this person, and there is written, this is recorded. May I quickly say this, Mr. Eric, yeah? I think whoever came up with the idea of devolving health services actually dealt a blow to our health service. Let us nationalize. Let us take health services to the national level.
The national level.
At the national level, every dispensary, every referral, let it be managed by the national government, not these entities who called counties. No, it's very bad, very bad.
Thank you, Zachary.
Thank you.
Have a lovely weekend.
Oh, lovely weekend too.
Jimmy in Malindi, good morning.
Good morning too.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's good to hear you, Jimmy. Asante.
Yes, please?
Yeah, I was saying it's good to hear you.
Oh, thank you. I'm always there. Though sometimes I don't have to call, but it's always my morning with the spice.
Jimmy, do you support this proposal by NHIF that beneficiaries will only seek chronic illness treatment at government hospitals?
I support it because, one, I support it. I have a however, yeah? I support it because this is the only way. The government has to supervise on the people with the COVID vaccines. So if you will be forced to go there, obviously you heard Muthui say, if you're coming for the vaccine, you come to the government entities. So it is like it's like a way of monitoring, because many people will be going for the government hospitals rather than the private hospitals. Secondly, these private hospitals have been stealing our doctors. You find, like here in Malindi, a doctor is supposed to be in the general hospital. The doctor works at the private hospital, Tofik. And the people, the other doctors on training, since a referral, the other doctors on training, they have to communicate with the senior doctor who is attending someone in a private hospital. You see? So, the only way to keep responsibility to the government on health sector is by giving this kind of mandate. However, it is very disappointing because at past, my son was born in a government hospital. In a private hospital, it was 3,500 normal birth charges. In a government hospital, where we are told it is free, on coming out of the hospital, they wrote for us a receipt of 5,000 shillings. But under NHIF Linda Mama, you're told it's free, but there is a receipt which is going to be written. So, it seems that if the government hospital can inflate the birth charges, what is happening with the private hospitals? So it could be, it seems the private hospitals have been inflating charges. So it is good for them to stick to the government hospitals, but still they are supposed to up their game, because corruption that is in NHIF is not only from what they steal, but also they should check on what they charge.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much. Brian in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I think I disagree with that directive.
It's a proposed regulation.
Yes. You see, you've had a discussion the last, I think, 2 days.
Yep.
And you guys kept quoting Kakamega Referral Hospital, which is a building with nothing in it.
Yep.
There's another guest in your studio who said, I think, something about a 2-year wait list in Kenyatta National Hospital.
For radiotherapy.
Yes, and you see, some things are a matter of life and death.
Yep.
What I can say is they do a capitation model that a maximum is this amount. So if I choose to go to a private hospital, they can pay up to a certain amount. Then the rest, I top it up. But limiting these issues to just public hospitals, and they've not ensured they have enough personnel to man those machines, or they have enough machines to do certain operations, I don't think will be fair to the citizenry.
Okay, we hear you. Thank
So
you,
I
Brian.
think they do a capitation method.
Thank you, Brian. Elijah, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Elijah.
So there is a fallacy that's being perpetuated here.
Uh-huh.
The idea that the public health system is able to handle all of the healthcare demands of the country. And when you say that chronic illnesses will only be managed at public healthcare facilities, you can remember what happened with pre-primary education.
Exactly.
So everyone will flood these systems, the systems will collapse, and then we will be back to square one.
So your answer to this is no.
It's not no out of defiance, it's no out of rationale.
It's logic.
There's logic to it. When NHIF tried to negotiate with private facilities, not negotiate, strong arm private facilities, to try and limit how much they can charge for different procedures and charge for doctors and all of this. Parliamentarians told them, go back, negotiate with these institutions, because as recently as January, the private institution said, we are not going to take the contract that NHIF has given.
Yep.
Parliamentarians, knowing that our healthcare system requires both public and private to facilitate the care of Kenyans,
Yeah.
told NHIF to go back and negotiate, and contracts were extended until July. The biggest healthcare burden cost-wise is these chronic illnesses. To try and say that the public facilities will cover all of that, it's a logical fallacy.
We hear you. Thank you, Elijah.
Yeah. Thank you.
James. Morning.
Yes, I want to. Morning. I would like to say this.
Uh-huh.
We are waiting for the collapse of the healthcare system in Kenya. If the government want to go that way, and this is because at some point we would think that NHIF will not be able to provide the health services adequately in Kenya. But having said that, I think the discussion now would only be important if it moved to the community, and more important, the aspect of the citizens doing active public participation, especially on this area. Because if we don't involve ourselves in the aspect of the public participation of the bill itself, then we will be the one who will suffer. And definitely, the NHIF as an insurance company is not, or will not be able to provide the services. We'll keep blaming the NHIF, but after all, it's the government itself which is supposed to provide the services, and definitely it cannot be able to do that. So I would urge the citizens, especially the middle class, who will think that we can find alternatives by going to those private hospitals, and yet we are paying the services to the government, to actively participate in the aspect of the NHIF.
That's very true. Thank you very much for your contribution, James.
Thank you so much.
We still want to hear from you, 0719-012-600. Do you support a proposal by NHIF that beneficiaries should only seek chronic illness treatment at government hospitals. This is one of the various proposals contained in draft regulations published by the Cabinet Secretary for Health and uploaded on the website of the NHIF. They say you have until the 7th of March to give your views on this. And then, if it goes to Parliament, it passes in Parliament, this shall now become part of the law, the new NHIF Act. It's 9:30. Let's look at the traffic. We'll pick your calls shortly.
I like listening to you guys. You're the default radio station in my car in the morning. Even the children listen to you guys.
I agree Parliament has failed this country. And I will say it again. We have not done what we should have done.
We know in this country, the Kenya prison sector is one of the most underfunded sector.
The way it is being done and the way we're calling it huduma namba the msema kweli is because all records will be there. You know, there are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes. Anything that the president does that is not in accord with the constitution is an illegal act. You know, he shouldn't be doing it and he shouldn't be sitting here and trying to sort of guise it up.
I totally believe live transmission of results and allowing Kenyans to be able to view all these results. I believe that it will be impossible to steal elections.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The sun is up in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 15. A chance of rain later in the day, but we're going to have to wait and see. All right, in Nyeri, 19 degrees and mostly sunny, highs of 28 and lows of 13. We're looking at sunny conditions at 19 in Nakuru, highs of 28 and lows of 15. It's partly sunny at 17 in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 12. In Mombasa, partly sunny at 29, highs of 33. And Malindi, sunny at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 26. Kisumu is sunny at 23, highs of 28 and lows of 19, while it's partly sunny in Kakamega at 23. It'll go to highs of 28. Kampala, rain showers continue at 21, highs of 27 today, and it's now sunny in Dar es Salaam at 28. See highs of 31 and lows of 26. Sunny conditions in Lagos at 26, highs of 34. And it's mostly cloudy at 16 in Johannesburg. 23 will be the high and lows of 15. It's raining still in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Going into early Friday evening in Beijing, it's 2 degrees and sunny. We'll see highs of 4 and lows of -8. Cloudy conditions in Paris at 12, highs of 13 and lows of 4. While in London, it's raining at 12. That'll be today's high, coming down to lows of 5. It's still raining in New York coming into Friday morning. 11 degrees right now. We'll see highs of 14 and lows of -4.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
We're coming out of traffic hour, folks, and we're still seeing that slow movement to Mombasa Road today, heading out into the city. Raila Odinga Way, chock-a-blocked bumper-to-bumper action there. Jogo Road looking a lot better, but then as you're getting to the Kamkunji roundabout coming off Landis, that has slowed down completely. Thika Superhighway, gone in 10 minutes. Shouldn't be too hard to get out of that. We'll see, though, at the Pangani underpass as you're getting towards the city, that things are going to clog up just a tad. The question is, what's happening on Mombasa Road this morning? And why is there all that traffic as you're getting past General Motors? Your guess is as good as mine. Let us know what's happening, guys. Through the morning, SpiceFM, KE, on Twitter, text 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
19012600. There are various draft regulations that have been published by the Cabinet Secretary for Health to operationalize the new NHIF Act. One of them is talking about the benefits and claims that you can make as a beneficiary of NHIF. It says, if you are a beneficiary, you shall only access treatment for chronic illnesses at government hospitals. This is where NHIF shall pay. NHIF will no longer pay for treatment of chronic illnesses at private facilities. We're talking about cancer. We're talking about renal failures, people who are going for dialysis, people who are under medication and treatment for high blood pressure, for diabetes, and such other chronic illnesses. Only government hospital, nowhere else. Karanja in Naivasha, good morning.
Good morning there, Kindu and City.
Good morning,
Good
Karanja.
morning, sir.
Yes, how is it going?
It's going.
The going is good.
Now, I totally disagree with the minister directive, given the fact that health is a basic necessity to Kenyans. Now, look this way. We have the inpatient and outpatient people in NHIF. About 60% of these beneficiaries of NHIF, they have chosen to go to private hospitals. Now, if the minister denies the people the right to go to their own choice, so what will happen? What is the rationale did the minister use to come to this conclusion? What is the criteria now to be done with people, their basic health, and telling them to go to the national hospital, to the public hospitals? But you see, there is a scam here where they want people to go to the public hospital so that they can get their own money. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you, Karanja. Hey. Conspiratorial.
Say that again.
What is Mike saying on social media?
Mike says, good morning, guys. Let me contribute on the NHIF topic. I have just listened to the guys talking about token of appreciation. If one has not made any claim on the NHIF, I would suggest that there would be an introduction of cosmetic services to be covered by NHIF. Please note that this should be available to people who, for instance, have claimed for a period of at least 5 years and above, who have not claimed for a period of at least 5 years and above. Something covering something like 100 to 200,000. Get your money back as a lump sum kind of thing.
In insurance, there's the no claim discount. Right?
But when you're signing,
when you're renewing and you haven't claimed in the previous year, then you are entitled to a certain discount.
You actually pay less than you paid the previous year.
Yeah. That's because you haven't claimed. Now, when it comes to health services, health insurance, why not?
What is actually odd, and this is a glaring anomaly. Given the resources at the disposal of the government, there is no private entity in this country that can claim to have more resources at its disposal to be able to provide healthcare like the government.
No.
None. It doesn't matter who they are. And yet, we see resources being expended and being directed towards public healthcare, and we don't see a commensurate reality of what was actually proposed in these expenditures. The aim is to make public hospitals the best hospitals that anyone can go to.
Exactly. That should be the point. That's the point.
Given the resources that we have at our disposal, there's really no reason why they shouldn't be.
There is no reason why that is not the case now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Meaning, out of convenience or just preference, you may go to a private hospital. But if you want healthcare that you can consider to be top-notch, it ought to be public hospitals.
Yeah. That you don't even have to think about the private option.
No.
Because the government stroke public one is so good that everything that you have is adequately provided for.
Yes.
This what we're talking about is not in the realms of dreaming.
No.
This is what happens in other countries. It happens in this way. That the NHS, for example, which is touted as one of the best medical schemes in the world, that's exactly what it is. That you walk into a public facility, that the most ignored, for lack of a better word, option is the private option. That you walk into a public health facility and it doesn't cross your mind that I need to go somewhere else unless you're going for something specialized like plastic surgery. Right?
And even
then, it's offered at the public system.
Yes.
This is what we are talking about. That can you boost that which the government has the responsibility to do anyway, to the point whereby all your citizens can go, that even you, public officials yourselves, don't have to hop on a plane and go wherever it is to seek medical attention, but that you can do it right here. And that should be a priority.
You know, the tragic reality seems to be that those whose duty and function, for which they are paid, of course, ought to be to ensure that this happens, seems to think that Kenyans enjoy suffering, that Kenyans enjoy difficulties and they enjoy an absence of services. So they're working really hard to ensure that they provide you with these things that you like and enjoy. We actually don't.
Don't like suffering.
Definitely, I'm here to enjoy life. I'm not here to suffer. I'm not here
allow
to
me to enjoy it.
I'm not here to, you know.
So even as we have this conversation and we talk about the resources that we have, again, there is no entity in this country that has resources available to it, like the government, to ensure that these very same health facilities we speak of, the government has the capacity, the government has the ability to do so much more. You're talking about facilitating the actual provision of healthcare and whatever is required. No one is better placed than the government to be able to ensure that you get it at the optimal, at the best possible value cost possible.
Do you think that those who have responsibility for making these things, you know, one of the things that used to annoy me the most on my report card in elementary school was in a subject, and a subject teacher would say, Ndu has the potential, but has not quite reached that. One of the most annoying things I ever saw. Potential, but is not exceeding expectation.
What is to annoy you?
No. The potential part of it, that she can do a lot better.
You didn't think you could?
No, that's not the point. That I needed to be at the point of excelling. I did not want to be told that I have the potential, but she's just somewhere there. I want to do the best. I want to excel. Do you think that these things that you're saying, that government has the potential because they have the resources?
No. This one is not potential. The government has the capacity and the means.
Do you think that those who are responsible in these positions feel, this narrative really now is not making us look very good? Don't you think we need to, now, this capacity that we have, these resources that we have, marry the two and actually get the job done? Do you think they feel inadequate, or like the way I felt in grade school where, no, come on, folks, we can do better. Do you think they feel that way?
Why are you imputing and suggesting and implying sentiments? Yes, or that everything that you see on a daily basis in which you... Right now, this discussion we're having is as a result of the reality of our situation.
Yeah.
The government is shifting its responsibilities to NHIF as we watch. Suddenly, everything is on NHIF. NHIF don't build hospitals. NHIF don't provide drugs.
They don't hire doctors.
They don't do any of these things. They don't make policies as to how our healthcare provision should actually be enacted. They don't do these things. Their role is a very specific one. They help facilitate all these things. That's what they do. But when you make the conversation as though it is them who are the determinants of proper, adequate healthcare provision in the country, it's a lie. It's a blatant, barefaced,
lie. Let's just use those two B words, shall we? Lie.
And it's important for those at the ministry to be reminded that. It's important for the governors to be reminded that yes, one of the things that we are saying, when we talk about not having adequate facilities to take care of those amongst us, our family members who have chronic ailments, it is a failure by governors. It is a failure by Muthui Kagwe at the national level. That's it. Even if we increased the NHIF and made it mandatory and even told everybody to be paying 10,000 shillings
still. And even if the money was available, still. You know, there's a very interesting aspect that has been a subject of discussion in the community I come from. And it's historical. How people who come from my community, many of them came to town, and the idea of going back home only occurred to them when they were about to retire, because many of them actually work for government. And when asked how it is, many of them didn't have a nest egg for the retirement and so forth. Many of them would say, you see, when you have a job, you're in a position, you end up educating your entire village plus the relatives. So the issue of having money to even save becomes, well, a subject of academic discussion, but it doesn't present itself as an option of reality. So the result was you did these things understanding that your insurance and pension scheme was in your children.
Investing.
That's the pension scheme.
Yes.
Okay? And in many instances, it
worked.
Mm-hmm.
There was dividend.
Yes, there was. There still is for a good number. But it isn't quite the case. But what am I saying? Why am I giving this example? You have a situation where the citizenry play their part in paying their taxes. You now have NHIF compulsory. People are going to pay. The numbers have even increased. Right? Then after we've done our bit and ensured you've got our money through our taxes, we've paid for this health service. And then you start giving us stories. About, oh, you can't do this. What on earth do you actually mean?
Do you mean, in fact?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Do you actually mean?
Yes.
You don't mean.
Straight face. Someone is just telling you ridiculous things which you're supposed to just absorb, imbibe, and go along and say, well, you know. No. There's no well, you know. No.
Provide the service.
Provide the service. That's it.
Period.
We're not asking for flowery things. No. Just provide the service.
Yeah. Back to the phone lines. Ruben in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Yes. I was just listening a bit to your conversation, but my request is a bit off. My fiance is having a birthday today, and I was asking if you guys could help me sing happy birthday.
Oh, Ndu.
That one we can do immediately. Okay. How many stanzas do you want us to sing?
As many as you can, depending on the time you have.
All right. We are going to give you family and friend discounts. One stanza.
What's her name?
Linda.
Linda. Where is she?
Yeah.
Today?
She's in Nairobi.
She's in Nairobi. You're in Kisumu.
Yeah.
Okay. Ndu.
Our choir mistress.
Mistress.
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday, Linda. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Linda. Happy birthday.
Hey.
Thank you.
Kabisa.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, sir.
I really appreciate
And all the best in your journey of life together.
Thank you so much. She's listened.
Oh, fantastic.
Kabisa. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Have a good day, man.
You too.
0719-012-600. We are talking about new NHIF regulations, draft regulations published by the Cabinet Secretary for Health, and they are available on the NHIF website. One of the clauses in this says that if you are suffering from chronic illness and you're a beneficiary of NHIF, remember now NHIF is going to be compulsory. You'll only access treatment for chronic illnesses in government hospitals. No private. NHIF will not pay for treatment of chronic illnesses in private hospitals. Okay. Now, do you agree with it? Do you support that proposal by the NHIF that beneficiaries should only seek chronic illness treatment at public hospitals? Do you support that proposal? That is one of the many proposals that are there, and that's what we are discussing this morning. It basically talks about, if we just look at cancer, how many radiotherapy machines do we have in the country? How many hospitals in the country are able to offer this? A majority of cancer treatment is actually being done in the private sector, not in government. Miraj, I was about to pick your call, Miraj, calling in from Mombasa, and then the call dropped. Let's see if we can call back and we'll pick your call as we continue the conversation. 0719-012-600. SpiceFM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. Post your comment as well, and we shall pick it. So Evans is in Mombasa. He's talking to John. When John finishes talking to Evans, we will pick Evans' call. And 0719-012-600. He's ready. Evans, good morning.
Morning to you.
How are you?
Oh, one question. How are you?
Salam.
Fine, thank you, sir.
Okay, I was okay. Thanks a lot. Okay, I'm always for Spice. I normally listen to you. Normally pick your points, but let me today also contribute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you support this proposal?
Yeah, but in the matter, what you have to understand is that Kenya is always a ridiculous country. You see, when somebody talks of A, it's the meaning of maybe D or E. As much as they try to induce what directives they are trying to induce, actually, that's not what they are meaning. Where they
So what do you think they mean here when they say you should only get this treatment at government hospitals? What do you think they mean?
Because that's where they can net us. That's where they can get what we can contribute, actually. That's where they can net our that's a kind of looting. So far, let me just put it straight. That's a kind of looting. So that's where they can net us. Because if at all it happens to be that what we are contributing is then dispersed into private hospitalities, it means that they will not get because somebody will claim for that. But if it's within the public, it's a management of government. So meaning that something is somebody somewhere waiting for something of which he is assured of. If the scheme is strictly directed on government or public.
So it's a theft scheme. Thank you, Evans. Asante sana. Kenneth in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Fine, thanks.
Morning.
Mine is a quick one. I don't know if the cabinet secretary is alive to the waiting periods that people, especially with chronic diseases, have to wait in line for 1 up to maybe 3 months to access a service, especially in the public hospital. It would be a fallacy. To me, it is wrong for the cabinet secretary to decide to take everybody to that public hospital that he is keeping people waiting in line for up to 6 months. Even at this point when we have private sector trying to assist. That is my contribution.
Thank you. Strong contribution, Kenneth. Wawero in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning to you. Now I want to answer my question by adding this here. You see, in Mombasa, Jombo area, we have two hospitals. CBS, which was the first one, and we have another one which is called Misheni. And since Misheni was built, it's about 2 years now. It is serving the purpose. So for me, it's a yes. It can happen. It can happen so long as we facilitate the government hospitals. And I've given you an example with that one of Misheni. The only problem is that now CCDF was the first one. When you go there, there's no doctors. You never find them. But when you go to Misheni, and it's the recent one, there are doctors 24/7. And even you get cheap medicine. So you get me? It can work so long as you have the proper mechanism.
Okay. Thank you, Awero.
Yeah. Okay.
It's making sure that the facilities work. If you have the facilities, you have equipped the facilities, you have adequately resourced all these facilities with the personnel required, with the equipment required, with the medicine required, then you can say, go to these facilities because it exists. It's not that people are actually just turning away from a public facility to go to a private.
You know, when people think of recreation, they don't go to health facilities for recreation, meaning you've got spare time and you want to sort of like, no, you go there because you're seeking a service. Now, if you don't find it, why will you keep going there? Now, the thing about Mombasa, which I must say, the county government Mombasa did a lot of wonderful things with their healthcare provision. If you go to the former Coast General Hospital and you look at what was done, and then I think back to their response to COVID and how it is they went about it. We talked about it initially, and then with time we talked about other things. But it's something that I would argue is extremely commendable. Where somebody goes to a public hospital and you actually feel my health needs are actually being taken care of.
Yeah.
Now, if it's possible in Makueni and it's possible in Mombasa, it means it is possible in other counties in the country.
It's impossible in Kakamega.
Because it's just a shell.
It can be done. And many of the people who are calling, actually, they're saying, well, you know what? Is it possible for public health facilities to provide the service? Yes.
Yes, it's possible.
Kenny Kenya is one of those who is strongly advocating and saying, yes, I 100% support this. Let's say that all chronic health illnesses shall be treated at public health facilities. When we say that, when we start by just saying that, then the next thing is we are actually pushing demand to the public health facilities.
Yes.
Then the public health facilities shall have to up their game. Because there'll be pressure. County governments will be under pressure. Look, we're in this county. We need dialysis machines.
We're here.
Where are the dialysis machines? This is the only place we can come to. The governors will start to think because they'll be under pressure. For example, he gives the example. President Trump contracts COVID. Was taken to the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Well, president. They go there. But he says, this is just showing that it's possible for public to work. Even in this country, it's possible for public to work. In fact, to a very great extent, if you actually talk to medical professionals, including Dr. Mercy Correo, she'll tell you that some of the best facilities that we have in this country are the public ones. Some of the best.
It is a fact. And the public hospitals have just about the best trained health personnel you can find in the country.
And the most experienced, because they're dealing with very, very many
the largest variety of ailments possible. You know, it is a pity, it is a great pity when you see resources being mismanaged and mishandled the way resources have been mismanaged and mishandled in the healthcare sector. It isn't that we do not have human resource that is willing and able to work. Oh, that exists. It's not that they do not wish to actually put their training to use. They do. But they're hampered because whatever is required to help make this a possibility and a reality is what is always the subject of our discussions. Remember, you talk about radiotherapy, you talk about the equipment required, it's very expensive. The thing about a lot of medical equipment, you don't have to buy it. You can lease it.
Yes.
You don't have to buy it. All these machines that you find people even own or have, say for instance, for testing in labs, these people who manufacture know that the equipment is expensive. You think they don't know? They do know.
They do know.
So they give you options as to how you can make use of the equipment. Do you hear that conversation taking place?
It happened, and then we were able to bungle the MES scandal,
Yes, because the reason why MES happened was because somebody decided for other people what they should get instead of
looking at what was necessary in a particular region.
And the region was themselves. Because if you actually took a census and asked the 47 counties what is they needed, do you think it would have been difficult for you to figure out what they need?
No.
Because they would have told you, we need this, we need this, we need this, and it's our priority. And that very arrangement would have made it possible for them to get what they needed.
Yep. Let's conclude the conversation talking about how to keep our children safe online.
Indeed. As we're having important conversations, this is another important one, reminding how to keep children safe on the internet. The authority remains dedicated to helping us work together for a better internet. Cyber Soldiers, not to forget, is that brand new interactive game aimed at teaching kids how to recognize threats and vulnerabilities online. So what are some of the best cyber safety tips that you've heard or that you've learned? You can interact with what you know and what is available on www.ca.go.ke/child online protection. The conversation is important to continue, and it's made possible by the Communications Authority of Kenya.
We've talked about internet addiction today. Yesterday we talked about cyberbullying. We'll talk about other threats that our children face when they are online as the incoming days. Keep it right here for that. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation this week, Monday to Friday. Today is Friday. We'll be back on Monday. You have some lovely weekend. So in addition to just having Sugar and Spice from 10 to 2, Quatch from 3 to 7, the adults from 7 to 10, you have 00 Direct tomorrow. What time?
10 to 2.
10 to 2. We will be back on Monday, God willing, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. City Muga, sema kwaheri with the proverb.
The leader in the community without a pot belly is a stingy one.
Kabisa. It's 10 a.m. Lovely weekends.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.